The students were also greatly surprised by such a powerful aura, which nearly destroyed them. The strangers saw that much had changed in this place. Apparently now at the Academy of Heavenly Warriors, the students practiced more with their tongues than with their swords, and he decided to ask again where Peng Su's stone hand was. The students didn't know who he was, and how dare he draw his sword in front of the students of the Academy of Heavenly Warriors. And apparently he had completely lost his mind, calling their director by name. But one of the students told the others to stop talking like that, and whispered to them that they were no match for him. The stranger struck with his sword without even drawing it from its sheath, and a cross-shaped scar across his face, and a silver dragon writhing on black scabbards like the night sky. He is considered one of the best masters of the Dark Alliance, and one of the 10 pillars of the Dark Alliance, the sword demon Cho Wool. Cho Wall didn't like that they were so talkative. He asked them if they were going to take him to Peng Su. Meanwhile, Director Su asked his people what had been found inside the body. The elder replied that the poison of the Tang clan had been found inside the body. There were traces of sweat and blood from a bell toad. Among the toadstools, there is a particularly poisonous one, the so-called devil's toadstool, which causes hallucinations and confusion. A concentrate of these mushrooms is applied to willow bark, which is then fed to the larvae of the longhorn beetle. The moths grown in this way are eaten by the far eastern Jirlanka, from whose white mucus a concentrate is made, which is then called bell-toad blood. But the person present believed that since not only he, but also the investigator and the coroner of the Alliance of Darkness were present at the autopsy, he thinks they have already reported that the poison belongs to the Tan clan. The investigator believed that even if he hadn't said anything, their expert would have figured it out anyway. And since they had revealed the trick of the twin killers of heaven and earth, he also decided to be honest with them. But the director understood that if Elder Tan hadn't said anything about it personally, withholding information related to this family would only raise more suspicion. The warrior believed that the problem was that there were traces of hallucinogens and poisons from the heaven and earth killer twins, but they were not as deadly as the sweat and blood of the bell toad. But the director thought that although it was the Tan clan's poison, they were not necessarily responsible for it, and the twin killers could have somehow joined forces with someone from the Tan clan. The advisor replied that only direct descendants of their family could obtain the poison, and in order to use the sweat and blood of the bell toad correctly, a special technique was required, which was passed down only to direct descendants. In fact, the poison of the sweat and blood of the bell toad only works in the blood. As soon as the poison leaves the blood, it loses its properties. With the help of existing techniques, it is possible to keep the poison in the body, control it there, and extract it immediately before use. It's a good thing that someone thought to extract the blood and internal organs from the corpse. Otherwise, they wouldn't even have known that the sweat and blood of the bell toad were there at all. And he didn't think that the Taoists of Udon had anything to do with the body. And he doesn't know who it was? Someone from the Iron Horse Cavalry or a student? The warrior joined the conversation and believed that the body had been treated with extreme care. If it was a young man, he had a great future ahead of him, so he should be sent under their wing. The director was surprised and replied that he would check it later. And since the warrior was sure that the poison of the murderous twins had been used by someone from the Tang clan, the warrior was not sure that anyone other than the direct descendants of the Tan family could use this technique. And was it really impossible to control the poison with the internal energy of a master of the corresponding or even higher level? The advisor believed that even though they were martial arts masters, he was not sure about this. In the entire world of martial arts, there are no more than 5 people who can control it with their internal energy. Moreover, it was difficult to determine the exact moment of poisoning. It could have been either before or after meeting the twins. The director listened and made sure that it must be the work of a direct descendant of the Tang clan. The warrior remembered and decided to clarify whether there were any direct descendants of the Tang clan among the Red Falcons team that had encountered the bloody blade. The director thought about it and replied that there were even 2 of them. The younger Tan was shocked to hear about the sweat and blood of the bell toad. His sister replied that it was true. His uncle had recently hinted to her that they would be protected at all costs, so she should just confess if it was one of them. But she was curious as to why it was inside. The younger brother was shocked and thought they would be killed. And if he had learned this technique and had these skills, he would have used them against those rats and would not have found himself in such a situation. Although, when you think about it, it's more a matter of common sense than skill. And even if he's hot-headed, he's just a guy at heart. Maybe it was his sister, he thought. His sister was scared and thought that Junior had gone crazy. But Junior knew that his sister liked cute guys, and the bloody blade struck the seventh divine sword hard, and she showed her full potential. The sister couldn't help herself and knocked the younger brother down, because in such a situation he talks nonsense. And now she doesn't know what to do. If she denies everything, it will look suspicious, and she doesn't want to get her parents involved. She needs to find someone else who can help her, and she doesn't know why only this lunatic comes to mind. She was overcome by a feeling as if she had been hit on the back of the head with a club. She remembered the saying, "Fight fire with fire." She had to find him. He went to Namgoon and told her that her senior classmate's room was in the first pavilion, and the student warned her not to get too close. But Hawk believed that if she was lucky, she would meet some rough men, and he himself would prefer to live in a safe women's dormitory. His sister couldn't help herself and punched Hawk, too. The guy was in a lot of pain and didn't know why she was fighting. Namgun told her that he knew she was like that and that he should have been more careful with his words. So he deserved it. The sister headed for the first pavilion, but her younger sister said that the disheveled gentleman had just left the dormitory and gone to eat. But the younger sister saw Mr. Heron. The guy was surprised to see Miss Lee and thought she was waiting for him. When they arrived at the dining hall, the student told her that Heron had brought ruin, that Brother Chan was not at the meal, and that he had gone to look for him. The sister headed back to the first pavilion and was very angry that she couldn't find her classmate. Surrounded by houses, she couldn't find him, and there was no guarantee that he would solve the problem. Now she didn't know why she had to run around like a stray dog, but in her mind she felt she had to find him. He couldn't have gone far in that time, so she decided to quickly look around. She headed for the lake in the men's area, but she didn't find her classmate. Passing by the path to the pavilion of the Heavenly King, she saw a couple with whom she decided to seclude herself, but Ryan was not there. Her sister was very tired from not being able to find Ruin and couldn't even imagine where he might be. Suddenly, she heard loud slaps. She looked up and saw Ruin teaching a boy. She didn't have time to open her mouth before she saw Ruin's strength, as he quickly dodged his student's blow. But Chaw Wool was nearby at that moment, and seeing this, he immediately grabbed his sword. Ryuan immediately realized that something was wrong, but Wool decided to ask the young man where he had learned the techniques of evil as a follower of the light path. And why did he have such eyes? Ruin closed his eyes and replied that his teacher had told him not to show it to anyone, and now he would have to destroy this aggressive witness. But Vol considered him a guy who attacked this precious body with his fists and used strange techniques. And how dare he talk about destroying the witness? Ruin laughed and replied that he had not yet aimed his sword at this precious body. And why were so many people attacking an innocent person with swords, blades, and spears? Vol got angry and told him to shut up. Heron suggested to the teacher that he didn't know what exactly, but he had definitely done something wrong. Therefore, there was no need to remove the bracelets from his wrists. And the elder also needed to show more patience. But both replied that they would not stop. Vol did not like the young man's words, and how dare he call him an elder? Ruin also didn't like Heron's words because this heartless man had cut off a strand of his hair, which was more precious than a skein of gold thread. But even though the villain with an inflated ego felt uncomfortable when he was called elder, Vol heard this and didn't think he should be called a villain. Vol drew his sword and threatened the guy that this time he would definitely cut his hair properly. But unexpectedly, someone asked Uncle Cho to stop. He apologized, saying that since he was not allowed to reveal his identity, it would be difficult to greet him properly. It was Ryan, his closest friend. Vol was surprised that the guy already knew how to use the voice transmission technique. But that wasn't the point. And why was this guy his friend? He saw the guy hit him with a swing. Heron replied that after the blow, he realized that he had eaten the sweets that his friend had given to a girl he liked, even though it wasn't on purpose. But Vol knew that the guy had eaten everything yesterday. Heron replied that he had just been given them, and Miss Lee said that she had taken them from Miss Na's room last night. Vol also understood that the guy deserved it. Heron did not deny it and agreed. But Vol didn't understand that even if that was the case, what kind of friend was this? Who hit him with all his might? And he shouldn't hang out with this monster-eyed guy. Heron explained that Rune was the only friend who didn't care about his status. He even saved his life. Vol put away his sword and showed Ryuan that he was just lucky. But Ryuan didn't understand that this was how he was trying to avoid punishment for what he had done. And he hadn't actually received any compensation for serious bodily injury or an apology for verbal abuse. Heron apologized to him because it was all his fault, so they would write the compensation off to his account. But Ryuan asked him if he could afford it. He already had a huge amount of credit accumulated. Vol heard everything and didn't understand if they were really friends. What else could be expected from a guy with eyes like that? He told the guy to cut ties with him at the first opportunity. But Heron became curious about what kind of eyes the guy had. Vol replied that they were like a tiger's or even a wild cat's, and he had rich yellow eyes like a lynx. Heron immediately assumed that Ryuan had jaundice and strange-looking eyes, and that was why he was always hiding them. Ryuan decided to find out if it wasn't rude to constantly spread nonsense about a person standing right in front of them using voice transmission technology. And it seemed to him that Heron's imagination had run wild. The guy realized his mistake and apologized. And Vol realized that this guy had overheard their conversation, which they had been conducting via voice transmission. And no matter what tricks he used, it was only possible with the level of 3 heavenly warriors. But suddenly some guys ran up and asked Vol why he was here. They had given him precise directions to the principal's office. So how did he end up here? After all, no outsiders are allowed in here, except for students and teachers of the academy. Heron used voice transmission to inform his uncle that he wanted to ask him how he found them, but it seemed he had gotten lost again. Vol explained to them that the guy who was accompanying him was slower than a turtle, and this wasn't an academy, but some kind of ant maze. Teacher Snowman saw that an interesting group had gathered here. He didn't know if it was a coincidence, but he decided to ask the students how they had come into conflict with their guest. Ryuan replied that the conflict was one-sided, and Heron also explained that there had simply been a minor misunderstanding during the conversation. He asked his uncle not to reveal Moyu's identity and not to cause any problems. Vol also asked the teacher what all the noise was about. Couldn't he even talk to the kids on the way? And since he was a busy man, let them escort him where he needed to go. The boys saw where he was headed and said that the women's dormitory was in that direction. They asked him not to rush and to follow them as they would escort him. Yu turned to his students and said that he had met them at just the right time. He told Heron to follow him to the director. Heron said goodbye to Ryuan and said they would talk when he returned. But the boy replied to his friend that he was waiting for payment on his bills and would wait for him. Ryuan clapped his hands and jumped into the forest, landing right in front of the student who had been watching everything that was happening. Ryuan immediately asked her if she had seen it, but she didn't know what she was supposed to see. Ryuan sat down and decided to take a look, saying that the distance was not great and asking if she really hadn't seen anything. After all, she was a SWAT in the special training class. But the girl replied that it was some kind of scary class name. What was he talking about? And Ryuan decided to ask her what she was doing in this secluded place. The girl replied that she just couldn't find what she usually found everywhere. She was looking for a medicinal herb. Ryuan was surprised and shared that he was feeling unwell. The girl asked him not to be upset and to get well soon. And why was his senior classmate here anyway? If he needed anything, he could just ask her. Ryuan immediately ordered her to start digging for the medicinal herb, and if he liked it, he would have to share it. The girl started searching and didn't understand why she should ask a crazy person for help. And it wasn't worth falsely accusing her, since she couldn't ask for help. But most importantly, he thought she hadn't seen anything. At that time, Chonghan said that it was definitely not the fault of the twins from the Tang clan. On Mount Udan, they didn't even have a chance to talk, and it's not in their nature. Besides, the sweat and blood of the bell-toad seemed to indicate that someone wanted to falsely accuse the Tang clan from the very beginning. The warrior replied that the Tang family had no reason to harm Kalhiban. They occasionally trade and exchange poisons and herbs with representatives of the Dark Path, so their relationship is not that bad. But on the other hand, only the heirs of the Tan family can use the sweat and blood of the bell-toad. Chang Hong explained that the descendants of the family could have kidnapped or recruited someone to obtain the poison with his help. It had to be someone capable of controlling the poison with internal energy, and the experts said that there were about 5 people in the world with the appropriate level of skill. But there are many masters in the world who hide their skills, and there are just as many who are good at handling poisons. The coroner might have thought that his internal organs had decayed during the transport of the body, But they were already in that condition by the time he was dressed in the shroud. Even if Kal He-bon had not encountered them, he would have died within 6 months at most. And although there was no corpse odor or decay, his body began to decompose even before death. By that time, his liver and kidneys had already stiffened, and his heart was on the verge of rupture. The warrior understood that this could be seen from the condition of the body immediately after death. But what did it mean? Chung Hong replied that the body had been fighting the poisoning for quite some time and had been trying its best to recover before its demise. This must have lasted for about 7 to 8 years. At that time, he was in the pavilion of the heavenly demon, which meant that the Tang clan was not involved. The cause of his initial madness was also the sweat and blood of the bell-toad. The warrior believed that he would have to report this to the Alliance of Darkness and wait until the killer, hiding among the followers of the Dark Path, was found. Meanwhile, in the forest, one of the women said that even the sky was higher today, which was why the weather was so clear. She suggested that the others have a good time. They could buy clothes and eat delicious food. She was willing to pay for it, but she asked Rin to help her choose clothes. And this applies not only to Rin, the Ice Phoenix, but also to Hui, the seventh divine sword. They both look good, and they probably have a good eye for things. The only clothes she has to go out in are morning clothes, and if not today, then she wants to buy new things tomorrow at least. But Rin said that tomorrow is the day of her fiancé's cremation. The girl looked surprised and suggested skipping the ceremony. And since her brother is generous, everything will be fine. An hour earlier, the warrior went to the director and told him that they had come to the conclusion that the real criminal who poisoned Prince Kal He-bon. Then with the blood of a bell-toad, it is located in the pavilion of the heavenly demon. And they had suspicions about the Tan clan from Sichuan, which they discussed. They also learned that around the same time, one of the clan's direct descendants had died a suspicious death. Chung Hoon had previously said that about a month before the incident, the body of Tang Im-heon, who had died in an accident, was found. He had gone to the mountains to study a rare poison, but ended up dying from the poison of a rare insect himself. At the time, people whispered that the death of a direct descendant from poisoning was a real disgrace for the Tang clan. However, now it seems to him that the villain was not an insect, but a person. And it is highly likely that the leak of information about the sweat and blood of the bell-toad occurred at that very moment. But the girl also told them to keep in mind that her fiancé had gone mad at that time. Because of the sweat and blood of the bell-toad, the director believed that this was their conclusion. And of course, from the point of view of Miss Ying and the head of the Dark Alliance, this may be difficult to believe. He hopes that they will report their findings to the head upon their return. But the girl explained that she could not return, and the one they call the head of the Dark Alliance gave her an order. She should not return until the true criminal was revealed, and their conclusion was not enough. But the director said that he had heard that her stay might be prolonged, but he did not think it would be for this reason. The girl decided to ask directly if she could stay here. At that moment, the warrior did not know what to do next. After all, if the director didn't mind, it could be a chance to ease the tension between them and the Dark Alliance. The director understood that if the head of the Heavenly Alliance wanted it, he would allow her to stay. However, there were a few things that Miss Yoon Sul-ran would have to comply with. First, she needed to meet someone. She headed to meet the guy. Heron explained to her that, as she had already heard, it was he who had struck the bloody blade of Kal He-bon. And as his bride, Miss Yoon could also take his life at any moment. Yoon decided to ask him why he was saying this. She had heard from old man Jin that it wasn't his fault, and her brother definitely wanted it himself. Heron replied that he was sorry, but he thought Miss Yoon was confusing him with someone else. After all, she was facing a student from the Thai sword school. Yoon didn't understand what he was talking about. Vol confirmed that it was true. This young man was not their Ren. Their Ren had grown into a handsome man, but he was not Cal Heron, just Heron. But don't worry, this young man is also good. Yoon realized that she should pretend that she and Ren were strangers. She would be staying here for a while, so she would find time to explain everything to her. She asked him not to blame himself for her brother's death. There was another villain, and they had to find him together. But Heron told her not to look for the criminal. She should back off or she would die too. Yoon decided to ask him what he was talking about. If Heron had any ideas about who was responsible, he should tell her. But Heron replied that she already knew. The force that could make a younger brother kill the eldest son of the Alliance leader could harm her family in ways no one would ever know. And how many people in the entire Morum do you think are capable of such a thing? So she shouldn't even try to think about it. The people behind this were not people she could deal with. Ying soon realized during her walk that she was being selfish. But she knew that her brother had always wanted her to be happy, and to let go of someone who was already gone. Wasn't that what the living should do? In her heart, she asked her brother for forgiveness for being powerless, because that was the only way she could survive. And only by leaving him in front of them could she approach them, step by step, without scaring them away. Rin agreed to go with the lady. Yin was delighted and thanked her, because she couldn't wait for tomorrow. The more people, the more fun it would be. And if they wanted to invite someone to go with them, they shouldn't be shy about it. Ruin headed to meet Hen and asked why he had been looking for him so urgently. And what did he want to talk about so badly that he was jumping out of his pants? Hen saw that the guy had forgotten what day it was. Did he really want to break the agreement? Ruin remembered what day it was and thought he could have waited until nightfall. After all, this was a busy place. Hen saw that this little devil was calculating. He even took the last of the grass from the young lady who had gone to gather it because she was hungry. Hen replied that he couldn't wait any longer. He ordered them to start right now. Today was the day when this damn contract would be terminated. Ru was surprised by his determination. He suggested going out for meat tomorrow. After all, as he looked at the torn grass, he thought about something fatty. Hen asked the guy if he thought anyone here would still be his apprentice tomorrow, from whom he could steal money. A student who only hears about meat, wine, and money from him, and Ryun would no longer be able to treat him like his personal wallet. Grabbing his sword, he realized that he hadn't been slacking off all this time. All the time he hadn't been suffering from his bullying, like a tied-up chicken being led to slaughter. He had been training with all his might. And so today he would defeat him, free himself from his shackles, and be able to fly freely. Drawing his sword, he showed his fiery power. Hen was ready to end it all today, and Ryun was glad that his student had finally made up his mind. But this was too much. Hen understood that with his body and blade fused together, thanks to the boy, he would be able to achieve greater success than when he was with the real Sabu. And he used his Akala flame, which burns evil, against the boy. But Ruin opened his bracelet and replied that today's performance would be fiery. And now their battle for the status of apprentice had begun. And Hen promised that today's prey would be only the guy. And he used the Sword of Thunder, the essence of the Phoenix dance. But in response, Ryun used his secret realm. Lifting his head, Hen was shocked to see how the guy had managed to dodge and end up on top of him. Hen told himself to stay calm and collected. And of course, he would be able to block the attack. And this time, he would definitely do it. But Ryun was much faster, and finding himself behind him, hit him. Heku thought it was strange that the devil had used some kind of strange spell, and now there were two of them. He began to cheer himself up because he would be able to block this blow. Hek blocked the devil on the left, and even managed to react to the demon on the right. But now he doesn't understand where the hell the demon behind him came from. After all, there were two of them at first. Isn't that cheating? And how come, even though he stopped it, he felt as if it were a hallucination, and he considered it a cruel and ruthless trick. The system said that the battle for the decision on the student's status was over. Ryun was afraid that he almost burned his bangs. And he doesn't even know why his hair is suffering so much today. People envy him for his beautiful hair. Hek wanted to die at that moment. After all, this was the second person in his entire life that he wanted to kill so badly. That same evening, the servant told his master that he had prepared everything as requested. And since it was urgent, he gathered those who were nearby. It would be difficult on the grounds of the Academy of Heavenly Warriors. Therefore, everything would happen as soon as they left its premises. The master threw the dice on the table and agreed. He regretted that he would not be able to see for himself how the righteous would deal with this. But the servant replied that he had done everything possible. But since time was short, and this was the territory of the faction of honor, he could not guarantee success. But the Lord believed that it would be best to allow her to remain with her fiancé forever. Even if this move did not destroy the white piece's position, and it would put the black pieces in a square position. It may seem like an unskilled and short-sighted move, but now is the time to arrange the stones so that even in the event of a white invasion, black would not lose. Because in this game, they are black. Meanwhile, Hui was resting in his room at night, but he was hypnotized by his thoughts and began to mutter that something strange was going on all day today. Ruin heard this and immediately woke up and stared at him as if he were a target. But he decided to act differently and, throwing a stone at him, immediately lay back down, pretending to be asleep. Hui was shocked and couldn't understand how this had happened. Turning around, he saw that Ryun was also resting. Hui slowly got out of bed and walked away. But Ryun still felt that he didn't understand why he wasn't leaving. He was also curious as to why a person who was obsessed with misophobia did not go to the temporary accommodation provided. And now he understands that someone is suffering from unhappy love. And of course, it's barely visible, but it looks very appetizing. Given his sincerity, he will make everything faster and tastier for him. Meanwhile, he was in the dining room and felt that the back of his head was still burning with pain. And this scoundrel is eating for three, worse than the vagrants from the gang of beggars, and all for his hard-earned money. Ryun realized that his student was calling him a scoundrel, but he pretended not to understand what this insolent boy was talking about. But in his mind, he thought that this little devil had read his thoughts. He definitely uses this technique, and now he is reading other people's thoughts. But he informed him that he wasn't thinking about that at all. It just flashed through his mind. But Ryun asked the student what he was talking about. After all, his teacher was talking about those guys, and the student was probably already drunk. But he didn't understand what this devil was talking about. He hadn't had a single sip. And what kids? There was no one there, and he wouldn't say he was drunk. Ren got angry and suggested that the student open another window so he could see. Couldn't he understand from where he was sitting? And since he was so clumsy, he should go and see for himself. And what could he see now? These people were like wild animals in search of prey. He didn't understand what animals he was talking about. These are ordinary people. And although there are a few guys visible, and he can't explain why, they look suspicious. And it seems to him that the devil was right. Maybe he's just imagining things. But the guy with the cart, the shopkeeper, and the man carrying jugs of wine are somehow different. Ruin asked him right away what kind of thinking he was talking about. When it comes to martial arts, at least his instincts kick in, but he lacks insight. And maybe the student will finally come down from the mountain. The people he just mentioned, they saw them when they first came in. And let's say they hang around here all day doing nothing because they like it that way. But here's the guy with the cart. It looks heavy, so why isn't the man sweating? And the cart leaves no marks on the ground. He didn't even see the smiling shopkeeper here a couple of days ago. And in general, it's kind of strange to wear fake sideburns and change your body shape to sell all kinds of trinkets. And the man with the barrels pretends to be tired. But in reality, he walks straight, and his muscles are not tense. And why pretend to be tired if he uses internal energy? And the apprentice simply ignored the two of them. Aren't that father and daughter suspicious? He was shocked to hear about the father and daughter. Reng told him to look at how they don't look alike at all, but pretend to be relatives, looking at different things. And then there was the old man's ugly and terribly old face. Wasn't that strange? He asked him where he got that from. What's so strange about being old? The guy replied that the thing was that only his face looked like a baked apple. His ears and hands had no wrinkles or cracks. And if you look closely, he doesn't even have an Adam's apple. So he's actually a woman in disguise. His daughter has round eyes, but judging by her long nails and the shape of her finger joints, she practices the claw technique. He didn't understand what claw technique. It's only for the Alliance of Darkness. And the body had already been cremated at the academy, so why were they still hiding here? But Ruin asked him in response, why do wild animals gather? Of course, it's because there is prey nearby. And since they had finished eating, it was time to go and take a look around. But he was curious. Where would they go? And did he know where they were headed? Ruin confidently replied that he knew. In addition to the beasts he had seen in the window, there were about a dozen more heading there. All this was to surround the prey. But Rin also suddenly noticed something strange. Meanwhile, an eagle flew by the water. The elder opened the paper and said that a guest had arrived and it would be better to talk on the other side. But the guest called the elder grandfather and asked him what he wanted to happen. Yun suddenly saw that Miss Na had frozen in place and asked her if something had happened outside. But Rin replied that nothing had happened yet. Yun laughed and realized that she was waiting for something to happen. Or did she really not want to choose clothes with her? It seemed that she could only rely on Mr. Moen. What did he think about light pink, like Miss Na's clothes? Or did it not suit her? Hui asked her to ask someone else. He was entrusted solely with her protection. Yun was upset because it was too much. But choosing outfits alone would not be fun at all. At that moment, Hui couldn't understand what kind of person she was. Just 4 hours ago, she had watched her fiancé's body being burned. At that moment, she was mourning her fiancé's body and screaming at him, asking how he could leave her. Vol also asked Heban not to leave them, but Hui didn't understand what expression she had on her face. But that's not what he should be worried about. He doesn't know what these useless thoughts are. He realizes that it's all because of last night's nightmare. But suddenly, Rin tells her student to get ready. It seemed that uninvited guests were approaching them. She would go out to take a look. Meanwhile, Wen tried on outfits and asked the boys what they thought of her clothes. And she thought, judging by their looks, that she looked so. And Hui asked the girl if it wouldn't be better for the escorts to stay inside. Rin replied that there were too many flammable items here. If they started a fire, they would be trapped in a fiery trap. And they weren't the only ones accompanying the young lady. Meanwhile, the observer thought she was going to do something suspicious, but she was really buying clothes on the day of her fiancé's cremation. She informed her father that the girl did not need protection, but treatment. She recalled how the director had asked her to secretly accompany her. And in case Miss Ying crosses the line and bloodshed begins, she should just watch her actions. And if a fight breaks out, protecting the young lady is the priority. And there will be 5 more with her. As her father had promised, he had placed people here to protect her. But was it necessary to do it this way? Couldn't he have just added a couple of beautiful girls? And now she saw that her father didn't understand secret surveillance at all. But suddenly she looked up and saw Ruin heading towards them. Ruin immediately sensed that someone was watching him. Although, of course, he was always the center of attention and attracted glances. He replied to the guy that no one was paying attention to him. At that moment, the girl did not understand what had happened. Why was she hiding? And more importantly, why had this source of trouble appeared here in the first place? And now she realized that her father was right. Something very bad was going to happen. Ryan was angry and thought that it wasn't because of some old man's foresight. He thinks it's just common sense, but he doesn't understand since when he has been so cautious. And considering how handsome he is, there's no reason for anyone to be looking at him. Suddenly, Ruin threw his ring at high speed and hit the salesman right in the head. People didn't understand what had happened and why he suddenly fainted. But soon everyone was shocked by the salesman's body. Just a moment ago, he looked completely different. And now he looked disgusting. Without a doubt, he was a follower of the demonic path who used witchcraft. But people were shocked and assumed it was a sticky ghost. And why did he use poison and bone-crushing techniques? But most importantly, why was a bastard from the dark path hiding here? But as she passed by the people, the girl also grabbed her hand and screamed that it hurt. People began to shout that the young lady's hand was suddenly shaking, and they couldn't understand what was going on today. Passing by the guy pushing the cart, he didn't understand why this guy was still intact. Turning his head to the side, he saw that the guy with the barrels was also still unharmed. He asked him why he hadn't touched the 3 people, including the girl dressed as an old man. It wasn't fair. Ruin asked him in return, since when did he start advocating for the rights of villains? And he shouldn't worry, his teacher is impartial. He had simply taken out those who could cause trouble and harm the observers. Overprotectiveness or doing someone else's job was not in his nature. Suddenly, someone shouted that they needed to hurry before they were too late. The enemies attacked the lady with plates, but Rin sensed their attack and, turning around with a single swing of her sword, cut all the plates. Hui also stood up to defend Lady Yun and protected her from the sharp needles. Yun realized that this was an alliance of 100 organizations that dealt in contract killings. 2 out of 10 seemed to have a lot of experience in real combat, but she blocked all the blows perfectly. But there was a ghostly pair with a hidden twin when one body hides another. She was able to stop him too. Meanwhile, Ryun walked past Miss Nam and greeted her, saying that she had a busy and active day ahead of her. He offered to join her in her physical activity. Rin thanked him for his help and said that she had a mission and did not intend to involve him in it. But Ryun was curious as to why she was drawing such a line between them. And that was very sad. But Rin didn't understand and asked him if that was really the nature of their relationship. Ryun replied that it was a little awkward for him to say it, but there was nothing he could do if that's what she wanted. They had a warm relationship based on mutual support. But Lady Na suddenly went full throttle and launched her attack. Ryun managed to dodge, but he also attacked the enemy where Mrs. Na had directed her attack. He really enjoyed the joint attack, and that's what he expected from Miss Na. Rin warned him that if he continued to make such strange and misleading comments, she would turn her sword against him. This also applied to his gestures. But Ruin asked if the problem wasn't that his honest and frank confession had been misunderstood. And what was wrong with his gestures? The guy explained that this gesture had been used since ancient times to signify something precious. It was also used to express oneself at the moment of enlightenment. In addition, it was a good sign to show one's determination and intentions. And when it comes to Miss Na, it symbolizes his heart. And now, after these words, Rin wants to see him even less. And it's time for her to go. Suddenly, Mrs. Yoon approached them and said she was grateful to them for saving her. And although she thinks he wants to help Miss Na, in the end, she also received help. And can she find out if the gentleman is also from the Academy of Heavenly Warriors? And could she find out the name or nickname of her benefactor? But suddenly, Rin joined the conversation and refused her. She believed that revealing his name to the enemy could put him in unnecessary danger. The two of them are enough to ensure her protection. Involving outsiders will only cause chaos. Lady Yoon apologized and realized that she had been thinking too narrowly. Raiwan was embarrassed that Miss Na was worried about him. He shouted his name at the top of his voice, saying he was amazed by this. Everyone immediately looked at him. But then he realized that he was so moved that he had revealed his name after all, and there was nothing he could do about it now. He would have to join Miss Na in her mission to protect her. And since that was the case, Miss Na could call him Rian. But Rin replied that she refused to do so, and that there was no need to pressure her. The guy looked closely and saw that Hui was with them too. He asked him how he was doing, and if he could rest now that he had joined them. Hui was angry and replied that there was no need. But Ryan warned him that if he tried, he would be like a burst persimmon. And would he really be able to handle it if his clothes got even dirtier? The guys were surprised, and Mrs. Yoon said that Mr. Moan was wounded. Rin immediately said that it was an old open wound. Yin was shocked because she did not know that he had been wounded. But Hui replied that it was nothing serious, and there was no need to worry so much. Since the wound was not serious, she had nothing to worry about. But Rune informed the lady that the young man simply had a hobby of moving around so actively while injured. But if an incurable disease struck, he would be doomed. Yoon clutched her head and couldn't imagine an incurable disease. Ruin began to explain that misophobia is a terrible disease for which there is no cure. And if Hui's clothes got even slightly stained with sweat or blood, he could faint. And was he sure he wanted the young ladies to have to carry him on their backs? Or would he accept his help after all? Hui replied that this would not happen. He categorically refused his help. En whispered to Lady Rin that these guys were close friends. Hui immediately began to deny this when he heard it. But Ryan said that they were roommates, so he was the one who knew best about his misophobia. Rin asked Miss Yoon if she had any other business to attend to. She thought it would be best for them to return now. Yoon replied that she was sorry that Mr. Moan had to work so hard because of her. On the way back, she would try to help them. Hui kept repeating that he was just doing his job, and everything was fine. She didn't need to do anything. Ruin also told her not to worry. Now that he had joined them, the rest of the journey would go smoothly. But Rin immediately asked him what he meant by the rest of the journey. Ruin explained that he meant that the beautiful and warm hands had cleaned up a bit, so only half of the uninvited guests remained. He understood that she could, as usual, jump out and start a quarrel. So why was she hiding today? The student saw that the rest had already been cleared away, and behind the red row, the mentor had put away the flaming blade. Where should they go now, he wondered. But the lady told him that since there was no great danger now, he should just leave everything and return to the academy. But when he arrived at the academy, the boy saw Miss Peng. He told her that something urgent had come up, so he had to leave. They would discuss the Kujong community later. Meanwhile, Miss Peng was very angry with someone, and destroying the stones under her feet, shouted that he was a fraud. But suddenly, when she opened her eyes, she didn't know why the stone was already broken. What should she do if he couldn't even handle this? He should stop lying around like a pig and get up. Stepping aside, she was beside herself, and when she heard a rustle nearby, she was frightened and asked, "Who's there?" Chong turned around and told the young lady that it was him. He had seen her walking by. He became concerned and followed her, asking her forgiveness if he had disturbed her. Mrs. Peng pretended to be amused. She said that he had been spying on her so that he could make fun of her later. Otherwise, why would Yeon Cheon-myung be worried about her among all the people? Cheon asked her to calm down first. Why did she think he couldn't be worried about her? And it seemed to him that she was crying. So naturally, he became concerned. Peng replied that this was nonsense. She was angry, not crying. Why would she cry? And in that moment, she remembered her conversation with Mr. Ryun and thought he was a bastard. And this man had countless images that he showed her. And this is his profile when he looks at someone. And this is the back of his head when her mind is occupied with someone else. And even his back when he runs to save someone. And she knows perfectly well who occupies his heart. And she tried her best to pretend she knew nothing. But there was no need for that. After such thoughts, Miss Peng could not hold back and began to shed tears. In fact, Cheon tried to adopt the spirit and martial arts of the great Shaolin. Even his earliest memories are connected with training. His family was the center of Shaolin's lay disciples and led the guard of the two dragons. He was born at the very top, becoming everyone's hope. He even heard that the money from all the elixirs he took as a child would be enough to build an entire village. Everyone had high hopes for him, but he himself didn't care about any of that, as it wasn't as interesting as martial arts training. Martial arts training was like air to him, and fortunately he could breathe freely because the Shaolin forest was not as small as its name suggested. And then one day something happened that excited him. He went to his father and asked when he could shave his head. After all, Abbot He Chong had said that with the shape of his head, he would look very good with a bald head. And if he could get rid of his hair, he would be able to practice more. His father immediately told him that he could not become a monk. He was their only son, so in the future he would have to marry, have children to continue the family line, and guard the two dragons. Cheon was frightened and asked if that meant he would not be able to study martial arts at the main temple. Why were other children allowed to do so, but he was not even allowed to train? His father was surprised and did not understand what children from other families had to do with it. He thought that Cheon was spending too much time practicing martial arts. He should take a break from them and just play with his peers. And so his nightmare began. He was suspended from training in order to play games. The next day, his parents took him with them to the games. Soon after half a month, he finally broke down. He cried and told his father that he wanted to train. But his parents did not change their minds. On the contrary, his father decided that it was worth arranging his engagement to a good girl. And there was one wonderful girl who he would definitely like. But his mother thought that he was indifferent to playing with boys his own age. So would he be friends with his fiancée? His father believed that everything would change when he met a worthy partner, just as meeting him had discouraged him from shaving his head. His wife remembered that as a child, he also wanted to become a monk. But his father said that it was just a silly childhood story when a bald head looked as dazzling to him as the sun. But my father felt that someone was watching them and told his son to come down immediately. And so, after 3 months of being banned from training, he met her. The director told Ha Ren that she was now standing before the heir to the guardians of the two dragons. Chong also remembered his father telling him that the girl's father was a holy blade and the director of the Academy of Heavenly Warriors, and that they could both teach her martial arts. But she didn't even seem to know how to walk, let alone martial arts. Cheon introduced himself and told her what to call him. Ren immediately asked the boy if he was bored. She suggested they play while the adults talked. Cheon remembered his father telling him that they would come often to see him, and now he wonders when he will be able to practice martial arts. And he called Ren fat, rejecting her. And now he realizes that he was a fool. When he realized he was wrong, nothing could be changed. Ren was very offended by these words. After that, his father called him a fool and asked if Shaolin teaches people to judge others by their appearance. He didn't even know that the girl's beautiful physique was related to the 9 muscles and meridians. And he blurted out such nonsense. Chong realized that he was very much to blame. His mother was also surprised, saying that she knew about the 9 yin meridians. But what were the 9 muscles and meridians? Her husband explained that it was a rare type of physique found in natural martial arts masters. Their entire body is covered with 9 layers of elastic and soft muscles. And if the outer shell of an indestructible body is like a diamond, invulnerable to water and fire, then the 9 muscles and meridians are like earth wrapped around the body. A diamond is just a stone that can be broken. But the earth is endless, no matter how much you dig. Most weapons can only scratch 2 to 3 layers. In addition, these elastic muscles help strengthen the meridians, making the body ideal for studying internal energy. The mother was very surprised and realized that this was an amazing girl. And Men was very guilty. He hurt the little girl so badly that now she even refuses to eat normally. And her father also asked him how he was going to become a monk with such a hard heart, and now he must apologize and purify his heart before he can begin training in the future. Kong really thought that an apology would be enough, but that day he learned that some wounds cannot be healed with apologies alone. And now he had wounded her again, and it seemed to him that this wound was very deep. Ren became very angry and, waving her sword at him, told him to get out of there. But Cheon wanted to hand her a handkerchief and told her to take it. After all, she surely wouldn't want others to see how upset she was. Ren started yelling at him, saying that he was the others. She hated him more than anyone else. Cheon lowered his hands and replied that he knew it was all because of what happened when they first met. Ren asked if he was sure it was only the first time. When he came to apologize, to mock her even more, he gave her a doll with the same hairstyle as hers, and a huge naked belly to boot. Cheon replied that that wasn't what he meant at all, and that's why she broke it back then. But that Neja doll was very cute, and he had loved her since he was 4 years old. Ren didn't want to hear it and told him to shut up. What was so cute about a pot-bellied doll with 2 dumplings on her head? Chong didn't understand what she was talking about. It was precisely because of this swelling that she was cute, because she seemed very strong. Although not as strong as Miss Peng, but in a moment he realized he had misspoken and apologized to her. And no, she didn't have to forgive him. And it wouldn't be a big deal if she cut his throat. He would pay for the words he had said as a child, however she wished, and if necessary for the rest of his life. But Ren didn't stop and yelled at him to get out of there, and kicked him. The whole forest woke up from her screams. And when Lady Yin saw this, she said that she thought something was happening in the forest ahead, and they were already on the academy grounds. Ryun replied that judging by the sound, it was nothing serious. Just someone kicking someone else. And they say that truly bad things are usually done without unnecessary noise. Rin understood and felt that these words were based on his own vast experience. And what terrible thing had happened to a man who remained unperturbed regardless of the circumstances. Yun also said that she had already thought about this. She envied his vast experience in the world of martial arts and his broad outlook. And apparently he had already seen many interesting things during his travels in the world of martial arts. Ryun replied that he had not yet embarked on his journey. He was just preparing for it, but he might leave this fall. Hui immediately asked him if he was really thinking of dropping out of school. He wouldn't stop him. Ryun replied that it was unlikely that Miss Na would wait for him, but if she was going to look for him, he would return no later than next summer. Rin asked her student if he really intended to go alone. If so, they needed to talk. Meanwhile, in the Warrior Alliance, it was said that a message had just been received from the leader via So Yun regarding a request from the Dark Alliance. The director opened it and saw that a meeting would be held under the Huashan Agreement to respond to the common threat that could befall them at any moment. And every 5 years, the best masters of the dark and light paths gather for friendly competitions at the Huashan Agreement meeting. And after the massacre carried out by the Bloody Blade in the Pavilion of the Heavenly Demon, at the request of the Alliance of Darkness, this event was postponed. And now, after such a catastrophe, they are asking for it to be held? And what does the warrior think about this? Suddenly, a voice answered from behind the door, saying that they were lucky if the Dark Alliance wanted it. Looking back, the massacre happened a year before the meeting, and only recently did both sides begin to discuss the revival of these competitions. And it is a happy coincidence that another catastrophe has happened right now. It is as if someone has deliberately set a trap. And in times like these, it's best to step into the trap to break it and catch the one behind it all. When she got home, Yoon told her boyfriend that she hoped Ms. Na and Rian would get along well. And since they had come to the dormitory, they should get treatment and rest as soon as possible. But Hui replied that he would leave after his shift ended, and the lady should go inside. Yun was surprised that the guy was going to wait in that condition until Miss Na arrived. She suggested that he come inside with her and rest. There was a room inside where he could stay. Hui replied that he would not be on duty tonight to guard the lady, so it would be inappropriate for her to go inside without her elders. Suddenly, something occurred to Yun, and she began to approach Mr. Moan. But Hui, seeing this, immediately stepped back. Yun was surprised and thought that the gentleman was afraid of her. But Hui believed that if you suddenly close the distance and approach a person, anyone would either defend themselves or attack. And the lady should be more careful. It could be dangerous. Yoon asked, "Doesn't that apply only to strangers or enemies?" After all, he was her escort, and apparently he really was afraid of her. Hui lowered his head and realized that the only thing he was afraid of was inappropriate behavior. Yun was surprised to see such a noble man as Mr. Moan for the first time. Both he and the young lady were models of honorable behavior. The Academy of Heavenly Warriors was a good place. Rin asked the young man if, after he left the Academy of Heavenly Warriors, he would really go after the person he was looking for. Roan replied that this was correct. Rin suggested that he had found an important clue. But the guy replied that unfortunately, that was not the case. However, last night he had a revelation that could narrow down the search area. There is so much in the human mind, and the mind of a genius like himself is like the boundless universe. And in the halls of that mind, he pondered, talking to himself. Rin's family was very wealthy, but they were not members of the imperial family or officials. Her skin was so white and beautiful. She could never tolerate the cold or heat. With a face like that, she couldn't have endured either a cold place or a hot climate. He even thought that she might be from the islands or the sea, but that wasn't the case. And then he decided to include only cities and regions with a mild climate in his search, places where it was pleasant to live. And if he looked for people from regions that were rich at that time, he was sure to find something. Then he began to wonder if Rin's family might have been involved in martial arts. Many guards were skilled in martial arts, and Rin's father seemed to have studied them as well. But martial arts masters visit that area only to attend the IMI school, and he thinks Rin was not one of them. And it would be strange if the weak Rin was from a family that studied martial arts. And since even geniuses like her have doubts, how can he remember the words of that scatterbrain in 3 Sun Pu Dan when he himself is unsure of anything? But deep down, he hopes she's not in Sichuan. Even mentioning it is dangerous for their universe. But waving his hand, he realized that he wasn't crazy enough to go there. And he apologizes for accidentally awakening such terrible memories for everyone. Be that as it may, they were recently in Hubei when they visited the Wooden School, so it's time to start with Shanxi or Henan. He needed to focus his search on the fat cats of that time who had now disappeared or were in hiding, especially if they were somehow connected to Muram and Kangho. And rejoicing, he hoped that this time he would find Rin. Ruin told the lady that it would be difficult to explain, but this time he would be able to find her. Rin agreed with him, but replied that she would go with him. But Ryan was in shock, and the lady made it clear to him that wherever he went, she would follow him. And did he plan to leave within the next 3 days? Ryun replied that he did not. He still needed to get ready. Rin said that he was very lucky. Then she would be able to properly complete her mission to accompany him, and let her know when he had decided on a departure date. Ryun agreed, but he wondered why she wanted to go with him. He would have been happy to think it was because she liked him, but unfortunately, that was not the case yet. Rin thought about it and suggested that she tell him the reason when she found that person. But Ryun thought that even if it was her, it would be like a one-sided game. Then maybe she could do him a small favor in return. Rin asked him what kind of favor. The guy told her not to worry, it was nothing, but it would strengthen their bond. He also found out about this and asked him what he meant by saying he was leaving in 10 days. Rung handed him a short list of things his dear student needed to prepare. He began to wonder what this madman was up to again. Although it would be better for him if he left, for some reason he didn't believe he would be able to enjoy it. And now he would see the body of Biryun's student for the journey for special training, and 10 liang of gold bars, as well as the healthy body of Kang Yun-hee with his personal belongings. He disagreed and asked why he had to take him along again. What did he want? Ruin replied that they would start with Shengxi, and taking the expensive disciple with them would be calmer and more comfortable for Miss Na. And then he would return to the academy and everything would be fine. He was surprised and asked the guy if he really meant that he would take the children to Shengxi for a meeting on the Huashan agreements. Ruin didn't understand and asked him what he was talking about. 5 days later, someone shouted to the students that he had asked them to bring Director Pan as soon as possible. The students replied that they had misheard him. What was the purpose of his visit? Wool was surprised and asked them if they no longer cleaned their ears. He would repeat it to them again. Starting today, he was joining the ranks of the Alliance of Light. He really liked their Academy of Heavenly Warriors, so he hoped to soon get a position here as a martial arts instructor. And if the conditions were generous, he would start as soon as he was hired. But then he refused and introduced himself as the sword demon Cho Wool. And why couldn't they find him a separate residence in the entire huge academy? And they even appointed him as a temporary employee with a meager salary, which wasn't even enough to buy candy for the kids. The director smiled and realized that he had misunderstood his words about generous conditions. And then he suggested that he look for another place. Wool began to refuse and made it clear to them that he couldn't live like this for the rest of his life. And they were such misers. It was a shame that warriors were so mercilessly exploited here. He understood that this man was an idiot and didn't know if such a thing was possible. And since he was getting 3 times more than the old man, and maybe among the followers of the dark path, he is a demon of the sword. But here they have the light path. As long as he is here, he will not receive recognition. And he is ready to wait a little longer, and he will make sure that even the place of the ice cube is threatened. The snowman teacher began to laugh and replied to, he would keep it in mind. And then he wants to ask the flaming blade for a favor. He was very surprised and asked what favor. The director explained that there were currently 2 vacant rooms in the dormitory allocated to the flaming blade. And Vol also asked why he had to live with this warrior. And he was not happy because in the entire huge academy, there was no separate residence for him. His life was already difficult enough. He couldn't bear to live under the same roof as a follower of the dark path. The director explained to him that he was an outstanding temporary mentor, a follower of the light path, who shared their views. But if he still felt awkward and uncomfortable living with a new person, what about him living under the same roof as the great mentor when he comes to the academy? After that, the elder met with the director and said that although the flaming blade was a follower of the light path, he was closer to the dark path. And he was not sure that someone like him would be able to properly look after the demon of the sword. And besides, to settle a follower of the dark path, not even as a guest, but as a warrior mentor. And even if it was the right decision, it was somehow too much. The director explained that the mentor, the flaming blade, was only rude and uncouth in words. But in reality, he has a keen eye for those who cannot become good. The sword demon Vol, on the contrary, is cruel and reckless in every way, but he has a keen eye for those who cannot become bad. He thinks that even though these two are on opposite sides, they are very similar in some ways. Therefore, if they spend some time together, it will yield good results. And the meeting under the Huashan agreements is held for the same purpose. But the elder saw that the hateful spirit of heavenly disaster was their common enemy, whom they wanted to defeat. And he believes that his decision has a deep meaning. The director thought about it and said he was grateful for the understanding. He would pay special attention to ensuring that the situation did not give the noble sword any cause for concern, and he would report everything to the head of the alliance. In the evening, In received information from the elder about the sword demon volume. The elder agreed with her and reasoned that it would be foolish to think that he had truly joined the Alliance of Light. He simply wanted to take care of the third prince, and Yun Chil ran. Yun understood that this was Uncle Cho, and if the guys there needed him, he would probably stay in the Alliance of Light forever. The elder was surprised and asked why he didn't know that Wool was her uncle. Yun replied that there were probably 100 other people who called this fool their uncle. Everyone who had met him as a child called him that. The elder said he had heard that Vol was very kind to children. For this reason, he joined the Alliance of Darkness. The girl replied that it was true. He even slaughtered an entire village because of the children. The grandfather asked her if she was referring to the incident in the village of Sohu. The girl replied that she was. It had been a bad harvest year due to pests and disease. And when his older sister, who was raising the children alone, died, the villagers locked the children in and set fire to the house. Perhaps the villagers thought that the whole family had contracted a contagious disease, but if they had known that the children's uncle was a martial arts master, they would never have done such a thing. They all died a horrible death. In addition, Uncle Cho's sister was probably also killed by the villagers. Only Uncle Cho has the right to be angry when remembering the story of the deceased. The elder also saw that she did not know how her sister had died, although he understood her. But killing 31 people because of that was too cruel. Yoon decided to say that in memory of those little ones, Uncle Cho is so kind to the other children, and she thinks he will be a good teacher. But she hadn't seen this box. The elder replied that he had recently noticed that their already frail daughter had become even thinner. And the more elixirs she took, the better. Yoon said that if Rin sneezed, 3 boxes would not be enough. When did their girl become so weak? But the elder was still worried, because soon their only daughter would have to go to the meeting on the Huashan agreements. And maybe it's because he hasn't seen her in a long time. But lately, when he thinks about Rin, he feels a strange anxiety. The girl took the elder by the hand and said that she was even more worried than he was. But he had said that he would go to see her before the meeting began. The elder replied that this was indeed the case. It was an important event, so he had to support their candidates, and at the same time he would be able to meet Rin. And if there were any dangerous thugs hanging around, he would deal with them. Meanwhile, Ryun said that he was curious. Haranu was curious, and if he was talking about the calculation, it would be done in 10 days. And if he was talking about him, everything was fine. There was no need to worry. Ruin asked him what he was talking about. Why would he be interested in such a thing? Heron laughed and replied that he could ask a little. But Chung-hoon didn't understand why there was such a rush. He hadn't done anything wrong, had he? Ruin replied that he had simply received an offer he couldn't refuse. And every time he talked about feelings, someone would just coldly draw their sword. But as soon as he said he was leaving, she suggested going with him. Heron was surprised and asked his friend if he was talking about Miss Na. And how could he leave? But he had to pay him back in 10 days. But Chung-hoon told him not to lie. Miss Na would never say such a thing, and he thought the guy was hiding something. Ruin replied that he hadn't said who he was talking about. So why did they decide he was talking about Miss Na? But she really did say that. And he imagined how Rin said that wherever Ryan went, she would follow him. Heron suddenly felt that he had just seen something terrible. And Chung-hoon told him not to try to imitate her and called him names. Ruin replied that he wasn't so naive as to think that she had suddenly started to like him, but still, wasn't that a hopeful sign? And she said she would tell him later why she decided to go with him. Heron couldn't believe it and asked again if the young lady really said that. And even if it was true, he thought the guy was still wrong. Ruin knew he wasn't wrong. He said that instead of simply agreeing to her offer to go together, he agreed in exchange for a favor. Chung-hong couldn't help himself and told him not to beat around the bush and speak plainly. First of all, why was he leaving? And where was he going? Ruin replied that he was going in search of a long-lost precious friend, and he would start in the West. There seemed to be a meeting planned there according to the Huashan agreements. Heron decided that his plan to leave alone, that is, with Miss Na, was canceled. And that was a pity. But Ruin didn't understand why he should be sorry. After all, he would be able to get money at any branch of the Blue Dragon Bank, and he shouldn't even dream of not paying back his debt. Chung Hong said that he could see how they both firmly believed that they would be chosen to participate in the meeting. And what favor did he ask of the Ice Phoenix? Ruin smiled and replied that it was a secret, and it was very tactless of his uncle to ask about such things. Chung Hong asked if they knew who would be coming to the academy before the meeting on the Huashan agreements, and if they were careless and died before it began. After that, the director told the teacher that the head of the alliance himself would come after the qualifiers. Therefore, from now on, special attention should be paid to the training of potential candidates. The teacher was surprised that everything would really be fine with the distribution of responsible mentors. He was particularly interested in mentor Kwang Yon-hee and the sword demon in the Black Sword group. The director told him that he would understand everything by looking at the list of participants. Had those two become friends yet? The teacher replied that they had not. Rumor has it that they are noisy every day. They are probably arguing right now. Meanwhile, he asked his neighbor if he knew what education was. What was he going to teach the kids? He couldn't even find his way back. Vol got angry and replied that he would start teaching he. He would lose and give up his place to him, and he could shove his comments about his age up his ass. Suddenly, someone knocked on their door and asked if they were inside. He ran over and asked who it was. He had something to take care of, so no one was allowed to enter. Vol also asked them what they wanted. First, he had to deal with the monkey. The teacher laughed and said that this time, the two of them had been appointed as responsible mentors, and they came with the great mentor to greet them. The snowman introduced him and said that he was the gentle sword of the wild plum tree, Chok Chok Han, and he was a student from the Huashan school. Since the summer and fall of the year before last, he had been teaching some of the classes on internal energy and martial arts etiquette at the academy. Han introduced himself and said that he was well acquainted with the reputation of the two of them. It was an honor for him to participate with them in preparing for the meeting on the Huashan agreements. He immediately thought that if he hit this pretty boy, oil would flow instead of tears. He would like to try it if the chance arose. Vol also wondered why this redhead had such eyes. What was going on with the eyes of those who worked at the Academy of Heavenly Warriors? He said that kids these days were pretty tough. But in his mind, he understood that on the other hand, he was now teaching here too. No need to get his hands dirty. But if he behaved like a complete loser, he would send him to the devil. Vol asked him if he had children or was married. But in his mind, he understood that the stone-handed devil was crazy. Could such a master be allowed near girls? Let him just try to raise his eyes to Myran, and he would rip them out. The snowman said he was already over 50. They could show some respect. He had been teaching students in Huashan for over 10 years, and maybe he looked younger than the two of them, but he had earned recognition. Han smiled at the master's words and his heart warmed. The children listen well to his teachings and get good grades because they trust him and follow him. He got married more than 20 years ago and once had a wife and a little daughter. If his daughter had grown up and entered the academy, she would now be in her third or fourth year, and she would be about the same age as his wife was when she died. He treats the students at the academy as he would want his daughter to be treated, and he is grateful that they listen to him so well. Vol immediately noticed that this guy takes good care of himself since he looks so young. Khan replied that he really tries hard, because he is afraid that when he meets his wife and daughter, they will not recognize him. He was already ashamed that he would grow old alone and die too late. It was all his selfishness and greed. Vol began to yawn and say that he hadn't slept well, spoiling the atmosphere with his yawning. The snowmen decided that since they were done with greetings, it was time to get down to business. The meeting under the Huangshan agreements was being held for the first time in a long time, and in the midst of such turmoil. So it will attract the attention of the entire Murim and have a great impact on the world of martial arts. Therefore, they must be strict in selecting candidates to represent the Academy of Heavenly Warriors. From 40 candidates, they will form white and black sword groups. As a result of the strict selection process, 24 people will remain in each group. The core of the white sword group consists of several students: Peng Harena, Cheonmina, Yonho, and Seyin, a total of 10 people from the Blue Dragons team. A student asked Seyin, "What's going on between the head and the deputy lately? Why are they so cold to each other?" In replied that he didn't know either, but it seemed that the deputy was watching the head, and maybe it had something to do with the meeting on the Huashan agreements. Snowman sees that they are the most active of the Four Gods team. They also boast combat experience, good grades, balance, and the ability to work together. In addition to the Blue Dragon team, there are 10 people from the Black Turtle team, including Cheon Hyun, Mu Yon, Ji Cheon, and Sol Ji. Each of the participants has a bright personality, but does not work very well in a group. At the same time, most of them have special and amazing abilities. In addition to the Blue Dragons and Black Turtles teams, a White Light team of 20 more people will be formed. They are not part of the Four Gods teams, but this way we won't miss a single talented student. In total, there will be 40 people in the White Sword group. Most likely the 16 who are eliminated will be from the White Light group. And the students who are not part of the Four Gods teams will have a chance to show their full potential. Vol suddenly thought and asked why the Black Turtle team was in the White Sword group, and the White Tiger team will be in the Black Sword group. Doesn't that seem strange to them? He saw that this old man looked like a hairy tail, but at the same time, he was quick-witted. The snowman replied that the director decides how the candidates are placed. Also, according to the ideology of the Huangshan agreement meetings, black and white should be united. Han also said that there was a deep meaning in this. The snowman would also be happy if they didn't interrupt him, even if they didn't know something. He saw that, judging by the way the hairtail was whining, he wanted to beat up the snowman just as much as he did. But next is the Black Sword group. It will include the Red Falcons team. In total, there are 10 people, including Namgun, Jin Ren, Una, and Sansan. Initially, their position among the Four Gods teams was quite sad, but recently they have made great strides and can now compete with the Blue Dragons team. And along with them, the White Tiger squad will join the Black Sword group. Rin, Ren, Cheonjin, and 10 other students. And when it comes to the White Tiger squad, most people remember the Ice Phoenix Ye Rin. But there are other guys with outstanding talents, including Go Ren from the Sword Pavilion and the Lightning Dragon Cheonjin. This list also includes Dan Mok with his Heavenly Key, the winner of the Three Holy Masters Festival in the Blade category, Yon Seong, and the runner-up Yun Myung. Suddenly, Rin's team turned to the captain of the Red Falcons or his deputy to ask for an explanation. Why did most of his squad members have such strange expressions on their faces? Namgun apologized. He replied that it was not because of the White Tiger Squad leader, but because of a sinister premonition. Ren also said that this was correct. It had nothing to do with the leader of the White Tiger Squad. They were just momentarily confused. But in addition to the Red Falcon and White Tiger Squads, 20 more students will join the Black Sword Group. They will form the Black Sword Group. Rune entered with his team and told Lady Rin that they had met again. He was surprised that the elders of the Red Falcon Squad were also there. They would leave together, but for some reason, she was not a slave to the meeting. And so, students with bright personalities joined the Black Group, including the group of Heavenly Justice. And considering the experience of the recent joint training in Udain, the director decided that the calm captains of the White Tiger and Red Falcon squads would make good leaders. Rin replied that in the end, they would still go together. But only students from the Academy of Heavenly Warriors could participate in the meeting on the Huanshan agreements from the Alliance of Light. Miss Ying also said that she had therefore applied for temporary enrollment as a student at the Academy. As a result, she too had temporarily become a student of the Heavenly Warriors Academy and would participate with them in the meeting on the Huanshan agreements. It is an honor for her to be on the same side as the heroes of the White Path. She is the flower of evil, Yingso ran, and let him take care of her. Reng turned to Miss Rin and said, "Are you still pretending not to see me, or am I mistaken?" Rin replied that she would keep her promise. The girl immediately asked her sister what that shaggy idiot had done. And why did she call him that? Ruin heard this and thought so too. He liked it much better when she called him that. But he asked her sister what was wrong with calling a loved one by name. Young people with a bright future will take part in this meeting on the basis of the Huangshan agreements. The snowmen said that the Black Sword Group would be led by the Flaming Blade and Cho Wool. The White Sword Group would be led by him and his mentor, Chok Chok Han. They had to strictly select 24 participants from each group. They will travel to Huangshan, where they will meet with the participants of the Heavenly Demon Pavilion, selected by the Alliance of Darkness. In fact, a meeting under the Huangshan agreements has not been held for a long time. The matter of the Bloody Blade has not yet been resolved, and they are going to participate there, which is difficult to imagine. Meanwhile, the Warrior of Darkness came to his lord and greeted him. The Lord said that the head of the alliance had decided to hold a meeting on the Huangshan agreements. And what does the warrior want? The warrior looked at him and asked him to trust him, and he would personally go and select everyone. The Lord replied that he could do whatever he wanted. There was no need to come and ask permission for such a trifling matter. Vol grabbed his head when he heard about the children from the Heavenly Demons Pavilion, but he had never been interested in them. What kind of tournament was it before? He realized that he had come here at the wrong time. Hay, hearing these words, considered him a stupid hairy-tailed, because he was demonstrating his ignorance. And if he had been as calm as he was, he would not have been caught out by his ignorance. Han immediately noticed that Vol's mentor in the Heavenly Demon Pavilion had many acquaintances. However, the event itself was a promise to unite the efforts of the White and Dark Paths to prevent a heavenly disaster, which had a different meaning. Vol began to shout that this was not what he meant. It's just that the kids here are as soft as tofu. If they get together with the guys from the Heavenly Demon Pavilion, they'll turn into mush. No matter how reckless they were, he didn't want the kids to start dying like flies as soon as he joined them. But Snowman said that only excellent students were accepted into the Academy of Heavenly Warriors. Plus, they could select the best and train them so that nothing like that would happen. But Vol again ordered him not to do so. Either let them make him an instructor for everyone, or leave the Black Sword Group to him, and the three of them should try to save the White Sword Group. He waved his hand and called him ignorant. And here he was, not the pavilion of the Heavenly Demon. And if he wanted to leave, then go ahead. After all, his kids from the Red Falcon squad, some annoying individuals, would never die for nothing. So there was no need to worry about the group. But Vol said that the local kids had never encountered anything like this. They had no experience when a comrade they trusted most suddenly carried out a brutal massacre for no reason. The snowman told him that if he was referring to the bloody moon that created the Bloody Blade, it was a very long time ago. And he didn't think that the students who were in the Heavenly Demons Pavilion at that time were still within its walls. Vol remembered and replied that it wasn't even funny. After that incident, they repeat this nightmare every year. He asked if the ghost of Kal He Ban was visiting them, or what else was repeating itself. Vol replied that when the high-ranking students of the Heavenly Demon Pavilion gather for a secret meeting, they assign several people to play the role of Bon in order to suddenly revive the horror of that day. Whether it was a bloody month, a bloody week, or a bloody day, every year 5 or 6 children were crippled or died. He was shocked and asked if everyone in the Heavenly Demon Pavilion was crazy. Did the head of the pavilion and the alliance just let it go? Vol said that all this madness was being done in secret so that later they would have a chance to survive no matter what. And as angry as it made him, the survival rate of the Heavenly Demon Pavilion students after graduation had increased. And surviving while following the dark path is not easy. In the Heavenly Demon Pavilion, poison was originally added to food by mistake, and the building with the children could accidentally collapse. Sometimes they were left in isolation without food or water. Will the students here be able to cope with those who have survived such experiences? The director was also delighted to hear about this amazing plan. Indeed, the thoughts and views of the sword demon are different from theirs. But if anything goes wrong, the students could really die. The snowman said that he would carefully adjust everything. And in this plan, only 40% of what the mentor Cho Wol proposed. The director was surprised and decided to find out what about the proposal of the mentor, the fiery blade. What a pity that he missed such an interesting meeting. The snowman replied that most of mentor Kwang Yun Hai's proposals had been rejected, with only 10% of the program remaining. And as risky and cruel as it was still better than falling at the hands of the students of the Heavenly Demon Pavilion. There were certain drawbacks, but he would follow the director's will on whether to continue or not. The director thought about it and agreed. After all, sometimes life crises and trials can be a wonderful remedy. Let everything continue as it is. Meanwhile, Ruin said he didn't know what awaited them, but he had a feeling that they would have a good time with her. Heron suddenly noticed that his brother Chung Ho looked tired today. Maybe he had taken his bellflower route yesterday. Chung Ho made a dissatisfied face and replied that there was nothing left to take. But suddenly Yun approached and asked Mrs. Na for permission to join them. Seeing this, Chung Ho said that it seemed that not only he, but she was also depressed, and she should make her face look simpler. He understood that for safety reasons, if they took the third prince and Unsolran with them, the meeting with the Heavenly Demon Pavilion would definitely be dangerous. And was it really necessary to do all this? Accidents could happen even before they left, and he thought that the head of the alliance would not like it very much. The director laughed after these words and understood that it was because he loved his daughter very much. He himself had witnessed the recent events, and raising his finger, he said that they were going. And so they too must prepare their children for survival. The servant asked if it was because all the characters requiring special attention had been placed in the Black Sword group, and to gather in one place all those he needed to protect. The director replied that he was such a polite and sensitive person, and he had to take good care of him. Chung Hun understood that in any case, their fool had a bad aura. He would grow old prematurely with him. If anything, he would help him stop him. Heron replied that Ruin was not easy to stop, but he would do everything he could to preserve his youth for as long as possible. It was a bit of a shame that Jun Ho was not in the Black Sword group, nor was Miss Lee. But suddenly the door opened and someone asked them to head for the exit. Wall entered and told the Black Sword group his name, which had been hired specifically for them. He said that the mentors responsible for the Black Sword group were the Flaming Blade Cho Wol, and he is a Flaming Blade mentor, confident that he does not need a special introduction. After all, he is here full-time. At the same time, the door to the White Sword group also opened and welcomed them. Chok Chok Han introduced himself and said that he would be the great mentor and guide them. He asked them to follow the instructions of the great mentor. And Snowman told the Blue Dragon Squad, the Black Turtle Squad, and the White Group to split into their respective groups. He, meanwhile, told them to listen carefully. Until they survive the hellish trials, they are not even human. Vol called them chicks or fucking puppies that hadn't even shed their baby fur yet. If they went on like this, their older brothers and sisters from the dark path would eat them alive. And the test they had to pass was a gatekeeper game. They had to close the doors that had opened before them, and everyone who wants to pass through them must complete the mission. The snowman also told them that from this moment on, they would begin to act, and those who fall behind will be removed from the list. The students began to ask after the conditions were set, why the teams were not being formed from the group of 4 gods. The guy replied that he thought numbers 1 to 4 would be given to them. That's how the right to choose is presented. But the students looked at Ryun's team and thought about choosing the right team first. In any case, it's better to avoid it here. The snowman said that the remaining 4 team members would be filled by representatives of the Blue Dragon and Black Turtle squads, and the teams formed from the white group would select them at their discretion. He also turned to the black group and asked them to choose the remaining 4 people from the Red Falcon and White Tiger squads. And if several groups wanted the same participant, or the desired member did not want to go, it was permissible to use force to make a decision. Hearing these words, everyone immediately trembled. Heron asked Ryun what was wrong with the faces of the elders of their Red Falcon squad. He would definitely want to add Miss Na to their group, but who would be the remaining 3? Ryung thought for a moment and asked them which of the elders they should start hunting for. Suddenly, one of Miss Na's sisters turned to Team 4 and told them to make room for them. Ryung asked her if she was sure she wanted to join them. The girl smiled and replied that the guy probably thought she liked him. In reality, she simply did not want the members of the young girl's fan club to be rubbing shoulders with her sister. Ryun understood everything and asked her what she would offer in return. The choice was not hers to make, and if she didn't have enough money, he would listen to other offers. The girl was very angry when she heard this. She told the guy that if he gave her a place, she would let them live there in exchange. Rin approached her sister and told her to rely on her and join another team. Her sister was surprised and didn't understand how she could join another team. She began to refuse and said that she would not go for anything, and she would not leave her. Did she really think that she would allow her to stay alone in this pit with perverts? Rin informed her that they would soon be joined by the Red Falcon squad, and she had to take on the protection of Miss Yoon Sol Ran. Her sister was surprised and asked why. Was the girl from the dark path plotting something? Rin replied that no. In the long run, everything could be quite the opposite. She would like to go herself, but there is some personal information that she must convey to him. And she begged her sister not to be upset. Her sister picked her up and was ready to do everything without being asked. But she threatened Team 4 that even if she went to another team herself, she would continue to watch them. But looking closely, she saw that there were few of them and asked where the guy had gone. Heron replied that she and her brother Chan had gone to test the elders, and if she was late, it would be bad. Arriving at his students, Ryan asked them why there were so few of them left. Namgun replied that the other members of the Red Falcon squad had been taken apart. Ruin thought about it and decided that the others were super popular. Then why were the 4 of them left out? Namgung replied that he thought it would be good to join Team 4 if the captain was looking for members. Some time ago, the student told the others to listen carefully. The only way to avoid Team 4 was to be quickly recruited by another team. Namgun immediately asked if the teacher would come after them. If the senior student decided to take them by force, would the other teams be able to stop him? The guy replied that no, they wouldn't, but most likely he would come after the captain wherever he went, so it would be better for him to just give up. Namgun began to protest, but the girl told him to be quiet, and it seemed that Miss Dok Gorayan was no longer coming to them. And now there was a problem. Miss Na would feel uncomfortable in a team of only men. That meant he would take 1 or 2 girls with him. Jiren immediately realized that they were in danger. The girl announced that she and OK would stay here, and the others could run away quickly. Moon told her not to worry. She had done a little research on this gold prospector. It would be safer that way. OK asked what other gold digger? Jiren also replied that she understood, because he was obsessed with money. Moon believed that the gold prospector was trying to maintain his human form near the Ice Phoenix, so she and Okyan would hide in its shadow. OK thought about it and replied that it made sense, and then she would join them. The student also thought it was a bit risky, but she understood them perfectly. Meanwhile, Sam said that he also had a brilliant idea. If he and Captain Namgun volunteered, there would be more participants than necessary, and he would be kicked out. Another student agreed and thought that no one would notice him anyway, so he would stay here, and few people knew him. Hawk asked him what he was talking about. If they weren't taken, they could force them. Had he ever seen beggars receive invitations? He could just trust and follow his experienced brother. He could even find him a place. He was delighted and decided that he would also go and threaten some team and join it. But Yell said he wouldn't rush, but he wished the others luck. He understood that his senior classmate wanted to see Miss Na nearby. He had probably decided on the other candidates as well. He wasn't the most desirable candidate, so there was no need for him to run around and stick his neck out. But suddenly, turning around, he heard strange voices that had already begun to argue with each other. Namgun thanked them for their words but said he couldn't go with them. The student also said that he would join the team of his choice, but it would be better to leave their captain alone. If they took him now, they would have problems later. But the girl from the other group turned to Miss Jiren and San and said that she was very happy that they had joined their team of three. Another team approached the other girls and said that it would be good if the two of them also joined Team 3, but that would be difficult. Moon replied that they would observe the situation for now and go wherever there was space available. Namgung told them everything as it was, and that the others had split up into teams, and they wanted to be in Team 4. The students had already said that this was the most important thing, and since one spot was taken by the Ice Phoenix, 3 people would be enough for them. OK replied that unfortunately, one of them would not be able to join Team 4. Ruin suddenly realized that they wanted him to choose from their group because the others had scattered. But why would he do that? Chung-hoon thought he saw their fool send a voice message to all 4 of them at once. The longer he looked, the more certain he became that he had found the Red Falcon's weak spot. But that wasn't important right now. Chung-hoon decided to remind him of his request, and he would choose the team members for the 2 remaining spots. Ruin agreed, and replied that if it was for the sake of their team's victory, he could choose. Chung-hoon immediately said that he would choose first, but Ruin interrupted him and said that he had chosen Namgun-san and would think about the other 2. Chung-hoon thought about it and said that for starters, he wanted Tang Moon-hai to join their team of 4, and if she joined them, she would get enough. Moon was surprised and couldn't believe that her uncle had chosen her. Why her? And what did he mean by enough? Chung-hoon replied that their team would be the key to victory at the Hushang agreement meeting. He guaranteed high profits if she lent her strength for a short period of time. Ruin was surprised to hear this, but now he understood why he was so excited. He was simply going to place bets on the tournament. Chung-hoon looked at the guy and asked if he looked like that kind of person. It's just that many high-ranking officials are watching this tournament. Enough empty talk. We need to choose the next one quickly. Ruin agreed and asked him who he would choose next. Chung-hoon remembered and asked if there wasn't a hidden genius in the Red Falcon squad, someone whose face is in plain sight but no one sees him. Even he sometimes forgets about his existence, and he realizes that he has disappeared again. Moon replied that she didn't know where he was now, but she would find him and steal him away. At that moment, Hawk said that no one from the White Tiger squad would come to them, but there were 2 handsome guys like them here, and it seemed that they and Jingon were destined to be together. Hawk turned around and was shocked to find Jingon gone. The guys replied that they didn't know. After that, Heron saw them and said that they had already chosen everyone. He asked them to take care of him. The boy was happy that the captains of the Red Falcon and White Tiger squads were both on their team. Suddenly, Namgun looked at Lady Nam and said that he was counting on her, but Rin responded in kind. Rune decided to say that since they were all gathered here, why not lay out his plan? And judging by his overly eager expression, he had received some information. Chung-hoon replied that he would not deny it. The bastard had an eye for such things, and now they needed to listen carefully. He had never been to a meeting on the Huashan agreements in the past, but he could say for sure what they needed to survive there. They all had to become a heavenly disaster, and if they were all ready, then it was time to go into battle. He met them all early in the morning and welcomed them to the first game. The director saw everyone and said that he was pleased to see them all gathered here. Even the head of the guard squad had arrived to report everything in detail to the head of the alliance. But he did not expect that the respected Taoist would also visit their academy. The Taoist replied that even though the son of the Jade Void had left the mortal world, caring for precious disciples was another matter, especially when it came to the 3rd shining sword, Cheon-hyun. The elder was surprised and asked him if he was talking about that stubborn man. Laughing heartily, he said that there was nothing to look at in this rebellious boy. He was just watching where the wind was blowing, and while he was doing so, he noticed a cute fledgling. The Taoist suddenly noticed that one of the children training in Udan had caught the elder's attention. Meanwhile, the director announced that the children had arrived. He immediately welcomed them to their first game. One of the captains asked if they would be acting simultaneously with the Black Sword group. Snowman explained to them that only one team would participate in this game, from the Black and White Sword groups. The director saw that each team had 4 members from the teams of the 4 gods and the same number of ordinary candidates. But the warrior remembered that the director had said that 24 people had been selected for the Black and White groups, but they were also divided into teams of 8. The director explained that simple methods would not prepare the children to face the unpredictable darkness. The essence of the first game was cunning, deception, and the law of the jungle. He said that there were 3 rules in the first round, and they needed to remember them well. First, they need to take flags, touch the tree, and get a pass. Each group is given 30 minutes, and if they damage the tree, they will be disqualified. The snowman continued that the second rule is that the participants will be hindered by their respective mentors, but the mentors by the tree will not leave their places. And in the flag zone, they can take no more than 3 steps. In addition, the mentors will not use their right hand or a real sword. However, they are not responsible for accidents. Any injuries are their own fault. Heron immediately told the guys that Instructor Vol was skilled with both hands, and Chong-hoon immediately realized that not using the right hand was just a trap. In reality, the sword demon can put the energy of the sword into even a blade of grass. And with a club, he is capable of killing. The black sword group is at a disadvantage. But Raewon didn't understand one thing. There were 8 people on each team. So why were there only 5 flags? The participant immediately replied that 3 would be eliminated, and one of them was him. But Rin said there was one more rule. He proceeded to the third rule and said that the participant who touched the tree without touching the ground once since the start would move on without a flag. And only participants in the round could take flags. Otherwise, there were no restrictions. And now let the team from the Black Sword group come forward, ready to challenge. If they are afraid, they will start with the first one. The snowman, in turn, ordered the team from the White Sword group, ready to challenge, to come forward. If no one wants to, they will start with the 6th. Team 1 began to discuss, and one guy asked, "Isn't that difficult? They can't touch the ground at all, so do they have to fly?" He was told that it was impossible. What if someone carried another on their back? Participant San told them that there were 8 people and 5 flags. That meant they would have to carry 3. Team 2 was also shocked, and Hawk told them that only 2 would have their hands free. Team 3 thought about it, and the participants said that it was difficult. It was worth watching how the others would cope. But the girl thought that carrying people on your back was beyond comprehension. It seemed that they would just have to leave 3 people behind. And if you look at it that way, the current is strong and the arm is wide. How can you carry someone across it? Moon replied that it had been said that they couldn't touch the ground, so they could swim in the water. The girl agreed, but when she saw the test ahead, she screamed that it was full of traps, and the traps were only half the trouble. But what to do with the flags? Where did the Academy get such things? They are disgusting to death. In Team 5, Miss Ying was shocked by the obstacle. The teaching methods at the Academy of Heavenly Warriors and the Pavilion of the Heavenly Demon are similar, but the participant thought differently, believing that they were not similar at all. Sam was glad that they were not first, and besides, he would not carry anyone. But Yoon asked, in that case, wouldn't the team that goes first be in a more advantageous position? But their group was almost at the very end. Han replied that he thought it would be better to observe the progress of other teams and how they would pass the traps. But Miss Yoon, as someone who had come from the dark path, must be better at dealing with such situations. Yoon said that she was concerned about the words in the third rule that said you could do anything without restrictions, because there will always be terrible people. The participant replied that this was true. Even though they were walking the path of light, over time there would be those who acted treacherously. Sam shouted that it was time for them to go. Why were they still standing there? Yun replied that no one on their team wants to carry another on their back. Fortunately, there aren't many people here who might hold a grudge against them. So even if they are last, she thinks there is a chance. In Team 4, Chang-hoon said they should go first. But Heron told his brother to wait, because he's usually right, but not this time. He also told Ryan that they should go last. The guy became curious as to why and what good would come of it. Chang-hoon started yelling that Ruin was different from them. As long as they had this fool and the Ice Phoenix with them, the later they went, the more danger they would be in. Heron replied that this was also true, and the situation was unfavorable. But as long as Ryun and his brother Chang were with them, they would surely win. And the dangerous situation only made them more excited. So Ryun needed to believe in him as he believed in them. But Ryun thought about it and told them to watch for now. But Chang Hong shouted that they shouldn't do that. The participant turned to Miss Na and asked why she joined this crazy guy's team. Did he threaten her or something? Rin replied that this was not the case and waited. But the next participant asked the captain what to do. In fact, he had been singled out and chosen for the first time. Namgung replied that he didn't know, but it was unlikely to lead to anything good. Seeing that there were no volunteers, Team 1 would go first. Ruan was surprised that Hen Wong, who had abandoned them, would go first. Chang Hun immediately realized that Team 1 was the best. He told them to stop talking nonsense and give the real reason. Heron replied that Brother Chang, who was always annoyed by everything, was more active than usual today, but he was doing it for him. And Snowman said that Team 8 from the White Sword group was going first voluntarily, but Chung Hun didn't understand what he meant by for his sake. Heron replied that he wasn't 100% sure, but he was certain that bets were being placed on the outcome somewhere, and his brother was involved, and if the situation looked hopeless, the winnings would increase even more. But Chung Hun didn't believe him and asked them who they thought he was. Get real. Gambling is a disease and the shortest route to ruin. But Heron replied to his brother that if things went well, he would give him 10% of his winnings. But Ryun said that he was being generous and would take half from his uncle. He repeated once again that they had 30 minutes, and the team captain gave the signal for Team 1 to attack. The White Sword group, Team 8, also got to work. They were ready to show everyone what the Ice Phoenix guards were capable of. They even started shouting the name of the Snowbag and Rin. Hearing this, the sister told the young lady, Na, that her life was not easy. Rin replied that everything was fine. They had nothing to do with her. Team 8 was suddenly shocked because when they turned around, they saw that someone had been attacked. They shouted that it was against the rules. After all, they had been cowardly attacked from behind. But the participant also understood when she saw this that, no matter how crazy they were, it was a violation. But Chung Hun said it wasn't a violation of the rules. There was no rule prohibiting interfering with others. In fact, there were only 3 rules, and as long as they weren't broken, everything was fair. The snowman told Team 8 to hurry up and pay attention, because everyone had touched the ground, and those who couldn't get the flag would be eliminated. Chung Hun told the fool that it would be better if the others understood this later. But thanks to him, now everyone has an idea of how to play this game. And when it's their turn, everything will turn into a real mess. And what will he do with these acorns? Team 5, the Black Sea Group participant, said that if this continues, the last team will face the most attacks. Shok Shin is an amazing person. Usually the teams that go first are not attacked for fear of the consequences. But Sister asked what was so amazing about him. He's just crazy, nothing more. But one of the guys said that they were next, and their path would be unsafe. But the participant turned to Miss Ying and asked if she still thought that going last was the best choice. Yun replied that it was, and asked if anyone wanted to attack another team. A member of the other team said she couldn't stand people who did that, especially the members of the 4th team. Hui heard all this and saw that they were enjoying the situation. He couldn't understand either him or her. Hours earlier, Chung Hun had met with him and asked him to join Miss Yun's team instead of his or the foolish Ruon's, and if possible to protect her during the meeting on the Huashan agreements. But Hui replied that he didn't care where they were, but he would refuse to join Lady Yun. His mission to protect her was already complete. But Chung Hun said no, he was the only one he could rely on, so he would not accept his refusal. In return, if he agreed, he would help him with one of his problems. He would find out who the head of his fan club was and his real name. Hui understood why it wasn't a good idea to put Ryu-un and his brother's fiancée on the same team, and why he had set that impossible condition in the first place. Yun said she was very happy that Miss Dog Go had joined their team. Hui understood and realized that he should have refused, but voices began to reach him from the trial, saying that someone had set a trap for them. The White Sword Group Team 8 was trapped. The guy asked Gun to cut it quickly, but Gun replied that it couldn't be cut. The Black Sword Group was also trapped, and the commander yelled at Miss Zhong to cut the net next to Miss Sima. The participants who got out of the water said there was no time. The teachers would save them anyway. They just had to ask. The Taoists watched and thought that they would have to make their way through a powerful stream while carrying heavy weapons. And then the net appeared. But the young man still rushed back to save his comrades, an exemplary follower of the light path. The director understood that it was not easy. The net was attached to a stone at the bottom, and its threads were made of silk, so it could not be cut with an ordinary sword. The elder also laughed and asked what the young man's name was. Wasn't it Hen-un? In his memories, he was a lazybones. But in reality, look at him now. One grabbed the net with his skin and shouted to the team to cut the net quickly. Seeing this, the elder was happy for this young man. The director was surprised that the guy came out even with the net tied to a rock. And who would have thought he was so strong? The warrior also watched and said that the first team was fine, but in the eighth, one person was drowning. Were they really going to leave him there? Meanwhile, the participant choked on water and apologized to the guy for not being able to cope. The guy shouted for someone to help him because he was drowning, but the director said that wasn't the case. And after confirming that the student had been eliminated, they would rescue him and carry him away. Although in other areas, the guys could get more serious injuries. Arriving at the next test, they found themselves in a fire. The captain yelled at the others not to dodge, but to run. That was the only way they would survive. The captain of the other team also told his team not to give up and to run. If they stuck together until the end, they would have a better chance of survival. The guy confirmed this too. Only then would they be able to break through the demon sword and flaming blade mentors. And the second team of the Black Sword Hack saw that they would be the next to go through all this. Yule replied that if there were no volunteers, then they would go. And since they had received the information, it was worth coming up with a strategy. After observing, Heron said that a total of 3 people from both sides had been eliminated, and the next zone was poisonous. Did Chang want to bet on how many people would fail in it? Chung Hoon told him not to drag him into gambling, and don't do that. Besides, if they lay low, everything will be fine. The participant believed that most poisons take time to take effect. It is unlikely that poisons that cause instant death or paralysis will be used here. Ruin asked Miss Na if she wanted some. They are good for the skin, but Rin replied that she would decline. The participants said that was correct. And so being poisoned, they would have to fight the mentors of the demon sword or the gentle sword of the wild plum. Ruin asked the girl how much she wanted, and since she was Tan Mu He, she got a special price, 1 coin for a date. Mu asked him to share if he had any left. Watching him eat made her hungry too. Namgun also saw that their blows seemed strong. Could they do better, he wondered? And participants shouted to his team that he and Ha-Yun would do everything possible to stop Mentor Will. Yoon also confirmed this and added that they would delay them and let them grab the flags. Vol watched this and said that they were shouting so loudly, but they could barely stand on their feet. With the first blow, they immediately missed, and Vol easily deflected them. One of them decided to attack from below, and Vol immediately called him a rat. Does he even know what he's doing? He saw that the guy was exposing his neck and used this to his advantage with his strike, and he decided that he wanted to die. The participants said that he believed that Vol, the demon sword master, was a master who controlled himself well, and therefore there was no need to kill. He understood that killing the mentor of the Heavenly Warrior Academy student immediately upon arrival would cause big problems and be a breach. The guys immediately told Wu that they had succeeded. Vol got angry and shouted that Wu was a fucking fraud, and he struck him, saying that he should really die. Han watched and said that it looked like the flags had found their owners, and they would stop there. Everyone worked together, and that was wonderful. They did a very good job. When he saw this, he told the other team that they had used tricks to get here. But he's not a temporary worker who's afraid they won't hire him permanently. That won't work with him. He would singe their hair so badly that it would hurt more than death, and at least he couldn't behave as relaxed as a snowman. He yelled that he would burn all the hair on their bodies, even where they didn't think there was any hair. And if they didn't want that, let them attack him fairly. He yelled at the guys to remember that the mentors who guard the trees can't move. The snowman, meanwhile, said that this was also a good strategy. Let them come. He understood that this bastard had lost his temper again. Considering the number of dropouts on average, 5 or 6 people per team would pass successfully. The participants shouted to the Ice Phoenix that if she looked at them, they would melt on the spot. Mu said they were crazy. They were going to sing about it too, and Miss Na should cover her ears. She asked Ryun to give her 2 dates so that Miss Na could at least cover her ears. But suddenly she was surprised that Jingona was not there. Namgun immediately said that it was better not to know. Heron also asked if Ryun would be okay, and he understands that it's self-defense. Chung Hoon told him not to mention the word self-defense in relation to him. It's strange, and if he doesn't come back, it's better for them. He will live his young life, and no one will beat him up for debts. And their fool won't let himself be bullied. It hurts to see them asking for a beating, but it's still better to deal with these Ice Phoenix fans before their leader arrives. And for now, he'll just watch. The girls also saw the silhouette and asked what was there. They had a feeling that some familiar sinister shadow was rushing there. Hawk also asked what he was seeing, but Yell thought that it was impossible to make out anyway, so he pretended he hadn't seen anything. Meanwhile, the elder laughed and correctly thought that he was like the wind today. The director also said that it was the winner of the festival of the three holy masters who had been very active lately. He had an unconventional way of thinking and behaving. Ruin passed by everyone like a hurricane, and Hans said that it was an amazing technique of rapid movement. The snowman also thought that 5 players from the 8th team should be skipped. If one player was eliminated, suddenly all the players fell to the ground before his eyes. Suddenly, the guy saw the deputy in front of him and told his mentor that he couldn't take a step. They needed to spread out and approach the tree from behind. But when the snowman saw this, he just stood still and moved only his sword. Suddenly, one of the guys made it to the tree, but the second one couldn't do it, and the snowman hit him. The guy asked the deputy how he was. The deputy replied that he was fine. He should hurry up and help the others. The snowman understood that Ji-chung and Tandi both had a good level of skill, so if they passed, that was normal. There were 4 left. The snowman thought about eliminating one of them, but when he looked up, he saw that all 4 had been destroyed before his eyes. Ruin was a little unhappy that those 2 had already passed. He should have run a little faster. The guy asked the deputy what he was doing. It was their team's turn now, but he ran here to cowardly attack them. The guy started yelling at the mentor that this jerk had broken the rules. But the snowman replied that it did not violate the rules, so there was no violation. Looking at his watch, the snowman saw that time was up, and only 2 of the 8 teams remained. Ji was very angry and shouted Ryuan's name, threatening that he would not let this go unpunished. Ruin smiled and replied that he would. Or did Ji think that his ugly, contorted face, as if his muscles had cramped up, should cause him fear? And did the guy really want to kill him? Ji headed towards him and shouted that he would definitely finish him off. But Ruin turned around and replied that fragile nerves couldn't withstand such a huge threat. He was afraid of him and needed to run away quickly. The others were shocked and, hearing about fragile nerves, wondered if this was really their senior classmate. He also thought that, on average, they should have left 5 or 6 people per team. He left 4 to appear more formidable than the snowman. But because of the little devil, his side looked more relaxed. The teacher told the teams to start the second round, and if there were no volunteers, then it would be the 2nd and 6th teams. Han saw all this and said that kids at this age are so passionate. Ruin was still running and asked Ji why he kept falling into traps. He couldn't understand whether he was trying to scare him or something else. Ji was still trying to dodge, but he even managed to yell at the guy to shut up. Ruin didn't stop and asked the guy why he kept running at such a speed. Obsession is a terrible thing. Heron asked his brother Chan why the fool said he was afraid. Chan Hong replied that today was just one of those days, so let him be. The teacher told teams 2 and 6 to start the test. But the girl looked at the captain and thought it was some kind of madness. And why was he sweating so much? Namgun replied that it was just hot weather. And by the way, Ryun is running here. And Miss Na, will everything be all right? Rin replied that she didn't care. Let him run. But Ryun asked Ji not to run after him. But Ji replied that he wouldn't let him get away now that he had come this far. Suddenly, someone noticed that Ryun had deliberately slowed down. Heron thought that he had a leg cramp. Chong-hun kept saying it wasn't a cramp, and Namgun prayed that it wasn't what he thought it was. Ji got very close to him and, striking him, shouted for Ryun to die. But Ryun dodged the blow and stood behind Miss Na, making her protect him. Ji yelled at him that he was a despicable bastard. How dare he hide behind her back? He should come out immediately. Ryun replied that he had injured his arm, so he had no choice but to rely on someone else. Rin told him that the wound didn't look serious. Or was it not what it seemed? Ryun replied that she hadn't caused any of the symptoms of a fatal sword wound, such as bleeding, dizziness, fever, headache, toothache, and so on. And he was fine. The participant also said that such symptoms only occur if the entire arm is cut off, not if it is cut like an ant's butt. And what toothache? Did he have gums growing on his arm? Namgun actually thought it was all because of him. But that's not what he meant at all, and that's why he asked him that question. Namgung thought it was shameful to look at. He's so thick-skinned that there's not an ounce of weakness in him. And does he really believe that this abomination will work? Ji immediately told the young lady that this guy was not worthy of standing so close to him. If she backed off, he would deal with him himself. But Rin drew her sword and said that he should back off, and if he came closer, she would cut him to pieces. And from now on, she hoped that he and his people would no longer cross her path. Ji was surprised and asked the young lady why she was suddenly saying this. Did she really want to open her heart to this bastard? She had never spoken to them before. Rin replied that she didn't care before, and didn't feel the need to say anything to them. But now she was warning them. If they came closer, she would attack. Ji said that he would retreat for now, but someone would still pay. Ruin was surprised and said that Miss Na had drawn her sword for him. It didn't matter who was stronger, but there was a mortal wound between them. But Rin told him that if he said one more word, she would cut him up too. The participants saw this and told the captain that the Ice Phoenix couldn't stand him. But why did he suddenly start acting like a weakling? Heron asked Ruin if his terrible wound had healed. Otherwise, they would be next in line. Chang-hoon also said that the second team had already finished and the third team had moved forward, so they were next. But Heron stopped and said that since Ryun was already going out, maybe he should go on the trip too. No one would mind, right? Ruin decided to ask him where he was going. The guy replied that he was going to protect the person who was about to go out. Namgun suddenly raised his hand and said he would go too. Chung-hoon became sad that he was living a lonely life, and it was all because of Ryu-yun. But at least now the game will get back on track. After participating, Hawk and the others rested. The guy said it was so hard that he was going to die. It was good that there was a place to rest after the tour was over. Yun also replied that it was nice to lie down like this. He didn't think their team would be so successful. Who knew they were so talented? Hawk said that because of the sword demon, Henjun fell in the last few minutes. Carrying a person on your back and slipping past the master is no joke. So here they are, a crazy club of young girl lovers. Yuang replied that the girls had chased them and beaten them so badly that the boys were on the verge of life and death. Their light footwork and endurance were unmatched. And Hawk's contribution this time was even greater. It was a cool strategy. Hawk laughed and replied that he was from a gang of beggars. That was why. At that moment, Hawk stood in front of the master and begged for mercy. His mother was over 80, and he had children like rabbits. But Vol hit him, asking what he was doing and calling him a crazy lunatic. He had seen beggars like this before. Meanwhile, the other guys had already followed him and grabbed all the flags. Hawk understood that he was just a simple beggar. But Yen showed his thieving nature. Was he from one of the 72 villages of the Green Forest? Yen replied that his family often socialized with them, so he borrowed a couple of tricks. Chong also did very well and attacked the snowman directly, while the others approached the tree and touched it. Everyone was delighted and thanked Yan Cheon for his help. The guys were very angry and asked if it was okay to touch someone else's tree. Hak laughed and thought that he was worried that they would not be counted if they touched someone else's tree. The sixth team might be offended, but thanks to them, they passed with ease. Yoon also said that it was a test not only of martial arts but also of quick thinking. Besides, because of them, the mentor was so confused that the sixth team also passed. Hak agreed with this. This time it was the third team from the Black Sword group and the 10th from the White Sword group. He told them to follow their example and pass the test. Yen was surprised and asked why he was suddenly here. Hawk suggested that he might have needed to use the restroom. And their benefactor, the Pike-nose dragon, looks cool even when he's in a hurry to relieve himself. But the boy told them that wasn't the case. Thanks to their senior classmate and them, everyone understood the flaws in the game. So the 3rd and 10th teams would respond accordingly. And since the previous dragon was going, the others would go too. Hack asked him what he was doing and what he had forgotten here. The guy replied that the 3rd and 10th teams of the group were mostly girls. Wasn't this a great chance for lonely souls to score a few points in their eyes? He suddenly jumped off the balcony and said he would go try. Hack was shocked that he wanted to help the girls, and he thinks the girls can split rocks with their bare hands. Why do they need help? But Yan asked, wouldn't Captain Namgun's help be useful? The 3rd group of Jiren's Black Sword told Namgun that it wasn't much, but the guy replied that everything was fine. There was no need to worry about what others would think, and she needed to think about survival. The girl asked what was wrong with them, and this applies not only to their team. Seriously, the participant replied that helping others was not against the rules, although there were those who didn't like it. The guys suddenly came up to the girls and said they would carry them on their backs, but the girls refused. But when a guy from their team came and asked if they would refuse him too, he came because he thought he could help those who had already joined forces. It's sad that they put him in the same category as the guys from the young girl's fan club, and if he's not needed, he'll just leave. The girl shouted at him and asked where he was going. Since he had already come, he should take them quickly. And no one would treat a Shaolin or Udan student the same way they treated the members of the young girl's fan club. The other guys said that no one was helping them. This was too much, and they could understand them. The guy ran ahead and told the others that there were fewer traps on this side, and they could continue on their way. The elder laughed at that moment and said that this round was filled with warmth. At this age, everyone's blood is boiling, hence the warmth. Dios replied that the dragon had come running, but the director's daughter had not yet come out. But the director was confident and said that she would come out now too. The participants suddenly began to say that Miss Peng still hadn't come out of the water. Would it be okay if they left her and went? Zarin replied that since the dragon was there, everything would be fine. Was Miss Jin Sol comfortable up there? Sol replied that everything was wonderful. For the first time in 10 years, she was being carried on someone's back. It was like riding a wooden horse, as long as he had to use both hands because of the swords. Heron laughed and said that was right. But if she wanted, he would carry her the same way Jun Ho did. Ho, meanwhile, expressed her gratitude to her savior for coming to her aid before everything started. The guy replied that there was no need to thank him, and although he didn't think he would have to carry this student, but suddenly he became curious as to why Ju and Miss Peng were still not there. Had they died in the water? The other participants told Miss Peng that they had reached dry land, but Peng couldn't breathe underwater and didn't understand why she had been forced to go into the water. And if she didn't give up the spiritual technique of regaining her femininity, she couldn't even swim. And if you add the weight of the weapon to her body, it's more than 400 kin. She was in shock. And if this support couldn't hold her weight, it would be difficult to get up. Should she even try, she thought? And now she was really suffocating. And why has her life been so difficult lately? Maybe she should just give up, she thought. But unexpectedly, Ji reached her and was glad that she was okay. When Pen saw him, she was shocked, but the guy helped her a lot and pulled her out of the water. She saw that Ji had almost died because of her. Picking her up, he apologized for being late. And now there was no time left, so she would give it her all, and she needed to hold on tight. She hoped that the Pykanos dragon would not die crushed under 400 kins because she had used him as a springboard. And if it did die, it would be its own fault. Ji was getting up and felt that her weight was enough to pin him to the ground. Still, her 9 muscles and meridians were amazing. In any case, he was glad he had helped, as he had been worried that he would not be able to find her in time. But when he saw the berries in front of him, he realized that it was all thanks to the dates that had fallen, showing him the way. And judging by the way it looked, it was the work of Ryuan's student. He would have to ask about his intentions after helping her. Rin said that it didn't seem like it was necessary for an attack, so why throw dates into the water? Rueng replied that sometimes dates can become a big bear in someone's life. Suddenly, Ms. Yoon asked the guy to give her one too, and it seems that the 4th team is next in line. And if possible, when this stage is over, she would like Ruen's student to transfer to her team. Ruen was delighted and said that it would be a great honor for him, and he was ready to listen. The girl asked why they should hire this cunning jerk. They are doing fine without him. Yun replied that this was true. The 4 members of the 4 gods team were quite capable. However, there were 5 flags, and among the 4 of them, no one wanted to carry their teammate on their back. For example, Miss Go didn't want to carry her, and she was right about that. And she herself would not want a guy to carry her. So the 3 of them are also out of the question. Hui told her not to worry about it. After all, she had him. But Yoon decided that if none of them agreed to carry the other, then Mr. Moan would win. But Sam joined the conversation and said that Hui wouldn't solve the problem either. When he saw the boys running to help the girls, he had the same thought. However, Ryan's student is not the type to carry someone on his shoulders. And since it had nothing to do with the Ice Phoenix, Miss Ying would only be wasting her money. Yun replied that she didn't expect anything like that from him. However, he was the worst offender at the academy, so she believed he would get around the flag restriction. But Samu was curious how Hui, being a lawbreaker, was related to flags. And did Miss Yoon even have the money to hire him? At this point, Yoon asked the guy, how about 1 liang of gold, provided that he helps her comfortably pass the entire stage? And if he helped all the members of her team, she would give him another liang on top of that. But Ryun said that wasn't serious, and she was surprisingly stingy. Chung-hoon also said that the amount offered seemed attractive to a person with a normal brain, but not to him. Could he do better? But Ryun told his uncle that with such poor business acumen, even a bellflower root wouldn't help him survive. And for that, not only 5, but even 20 lions would not be enough. Yun was surprised and realized that hiring both of them would be even better. How about 5 lions of gold for the 2 of them? She would give 3 lions for escorting her and 2 more for the others. Ruin replied that he would go against his principles and give them a huge discount. So they agreed on 5 lions for Miss Na alone, and all for him alone. Chung-hoon suddenly said that he was also satisfied with the initial conditions. Yun immediately said that she would repay Ryuan's student for the favor later. She asked if she could help them with Miss Na in return. She thought that in the future, they would spend a lot of time together. Chung-hoon realized that she was using a voice transmission technique. He couldn't see her lips moving. What was going on there? Ruan suddenly replied that he didn't really need it, but it was time to think of it as a kind of intangible asset. Yun allowed him to take care of her teammates as well. Go suddenly asked her what she was talking to him about and why she was doing it at all. After all, she herself had only recently joined the academy and was meeting the members of this team for the first time. And excessive kindness made one doubt her sincerity. Yin replied that before the meeting on the Huashan agreements, she should gather as many allies as possible here. After all, there are hundreds of people in the Heavenly Demon Pavilion who want her dead. And since her life was at stake, she would naturally do everything possible. And by the way, Go came, and even if she used some unpleasant words, she spoke out of concern for a complete stranger. And it seems that Miss Doc Go is a very good person. Could she get to know her better? Go got scared and told her to back off. Chung-hoon realized that she was really unusual, although maybe that's why the head of the Dark Alliance sent her here as his daughter. But Rune suggested that he figure it out, and everything had to be clear when it came to money. He would give him half of the money, and the rest would remain with him. Chung-hoon started shouting that 1 to 9 was too much. It was an unfair concept. Suddenly, one of the participants started shouting that they had succeeded. The guy was also surprised and thought they were cool. But the girl asked, "What do you mean cool? Is that all you can say after what you saw?" Vol shouted at the idiots to attack all at once, and today he would chew them up and spit them out. How dare they get engaged right in front of him? Did they really think they would get away with such devious methods? Meanwhile, the members of Team 10 arrived at Hui. Defending himself, he said that they were such wimps, and he would like to just give them the flags. A participant asked him if this was true, but something didn't seem right. But let the others do as they please. Heron said they didn't need the flags, but the others were cool. Sul also believes that her applause is for their contribution. But he shouted that he thought they were people, but they turned out to be cockroaches, and they are all mean little cockroaches. And if they think that by splitting into pairs, they can do whatever they want, that's not going to happen. But the participant told his people not to worry, and he's a Taoist, so he's not paired with anyone. The guy replied that words were useless, and you need to pour water on yourself. The mentor is in such a state that it is impossible to talk to him anymore. He threatened them that today he would sterilize everyone with fire, and at the same time he would remove all the hair on their bodies forever. Chan shouted that everything would work out if the 2 teams attacked the same mentor, and of these 2, it was better to choose the mentor with the flaming sword, because you can't burn wood. Hyun shouted that they were going too. He thought he had missed his chance to go with him to the great mentor together, but fortunately, that was not the case. The girl laughed and thought it was a joke, and although he was also worried that he might show disrespect to his father. So everything turned out well. Mrs. Peng also yelled at the guy to get out of the way and not block the road. Or did he want the mentor's flaming sword to wax him? Kong replied that he was not eager to do so, but at the same time, he wanted to be her shield. Saul asked Mr. Heron if he would take her straight to the tree. Heron replied that if he did everything right, they would even be able to taste the burning flavor of his fiery energy. He got angry and started yelling that they were damn neighborhood cockroaches. How dare they do such a thing? Did he look softer than a snowman? The snowman also noticed that the students were quite perceptive, and he could be angry as much as he wanted, but they shouldn't forget that on average, 5 people from each team had to pass. The students did not give up and shouted that they could and should all attack. He also replied that they should all attack at once, and whether this tree burns or not, he will destroy them all. And the mentor's flaming blade is awesome. Suddenly, he turned around and saw the vile students approaching him. He couldn't help himself and unleashed all his flames. But the students who helped the third team were badly injured. Chong approached Miss Peng and said that her sleeves were slightly burned and asked if she was okay. Peng started yelling at him to stay away. She called him crazy. One person from each of the 3rd and 10th teams was eliminated. Although their clothes and hair were burned, it was still a loss. Mrs. Tang thought it was terrible. Some of them seemed to have lost their human dignity. Let him look at them. The injured student said that he had gone to improve his chances of getting married, but now that it was all over, what would he do if he went bald? Heron replied that his head looked normal. So soon he would be a healthy and attractive guy again. But Namgung's mental health could not be restored. Namgung thanked him for his outer clothing. But why did the pillar of flame burn him all the way to his buttocks? Ren also slapped him for the first time. Chang-hun called Ryu-un a fool and said he wouldn't interfere, so he should do whatever it takes to win. They all had to fight their way through. Ryu-un replied that he probably wasn't serious about what he said. Meanwhile, in Emishan, his Sabu was dissatisfied, saying that it would last for a couple of months, but it was already over. The servant told him that this was the first special holiday this year after the launch of the pension program. So he prepared 5 bottles of rare wine of the highest quality, which he could enjoy for several months. And his birthday is on May 15th, and he congratulates him. Sabu was upset because he had a terrible birthday, and he raised an ill-mannered brat. But at the Shadowless Squad's branch in Nanchang, work was in full swing. The guy said that the odds for the 4th team in the first round of the goalkeeper game had been calculated. The second told them to start with the odds of their captain's 4th team winning. The employee replied that the predicted winners were, in order, the 6th team, the 7th, the 8th, the 10th, and their 4th team. And the odds for the 4th team are 6 whole 72 hundredths. Hearing this, the guy was shocked. He said that he still understood why this was the case with the 6th team of the Pakanasek Dragon and the 7th team of the 3rd Shining Sword, but their captain was only in 5th place. But why is that? He has the winner of the festival of the 3 Holy Masters, the Ice Phoenix, and the Thunder Sword Dragon with him. The staff said that people from the deputy head of the Alliance's side were rooting for the 8th team of the Whirlwind Sword VG, and in the 10th team is the daughter of the Academy Director, the granddaughter of the Holy Blade, Steel Pin Ping Haren. But the second employee said that although the 4th team has the Ice Phoenix and the Thunder Sword Dragon, many predict their defeat because of the crazy strike Sinya. But the workers said they were idiots because this team has a captain. It's even better if the odds of the others continue to rise. Then now the odds are on the 3 winners, teams 4, 5, and 10, which the captain pointed out. But suddenly the employee said that couldn't be. The odds are 53.52. The boss realized that the winnings would be multiplied by 53. Their monthly salaries and their untouchable reserves increased. But how much did they invest? The advisor replied that the number was approximately 12 gold bars. And if everything went as the captain had planned, they would receive 642 bars or even more. All the workers rejoiced and began to shout that they would support their great captain. Chang-hun believed that he was participating, so as an interested party, he could not invest his own money. But the welfare of his subordinates in one of the teams rested on his shoulders, with as many as 7 participants. And so, in order for the 4th team to become the best, we need to make sure that all these psychos pass. He turned to the guys and asked, "Is this right?" He's not trying to stop them, he's just asking if it's okay. Ruin replied, "What's wrong with that?" And he agreed with him that Heron's outfit was a little unpleasant. Heron replied to his brother that there was nothing to be done about it. He simply returned the clothes to Namgun, and he didn't really want to wear them as they touched his naked body. But if Rune's legs touched his naked body, it wouldn't be any better. So this option was the best for him right now. Chang-hun replied that no, he was wondering why 2 unstable students had chosen such a precarious position. Initially, he had planned to ask Namgun and the Bald Tan to team up. But Rune said that among them was actually Miss Na, who was a girl, and was he planning to stage some kind of perverted scene? Heron also said that Rune's method was actually better than his brother thought. It was easy and quite stable. He also lowered the interest rate by 0.03%, so he liked it very much. Chang-hun was worried that their fool had decided to carry the Ice Phoenix on his back, but that was even better. but Rin shouted at them not to discuss her. She wasn't watching anyway, and the two of them didn't look their best. Tang also said that the goddess was right, but what are the people on the other side going to do? And it seemed like most of the 8th team, and these were the guards of the Ice Phoenix. But what did they want to do? Rin heard them talking about her, and they'll show her his terrible fall. He didn't leave the place next to her to give it to him. Rin stopped immediately. Meanwhile, Ryuan yelled at Heron to move faster. Heron asked the guy if he wouldn't even go down in the water. But the guy asked in return, "Isn't it obvious? Why would he swim?" But participant Tan asked what kind of rope it was, and why did Gun San have the same one? And then they realized that the guys were going to connect both banks with it, but then the rope must be incredibly long. Then she saw that they had even found a stake. Where did all this come from so suddenly, she wondered. Chung Hun said that he was physically weak, so he always carried supplies with him in case of an emergency. And if Huang was ready, it was time to go. Chung jumped into the water and said he would go first and attach it on the other side so that the two of them could cross safely. Tang thought that a physically weak person had to carry heavy ropes and stakes with him, and she thought he was normal, if you don't count his face. Rin understood that this had been prepared in advance. What was it about the upcoming meeting on the Huashan agreements that made the alliance members do something like this? On the other hand, Chung Hong understood and knew that something like this would happen. The enemies attacked them and were ready to cut the rope, and Chung Hong saw complete chaos before him. The bald man was also shouting and asking for help. He had just changed his clothes and lost all his hidden weapons. But Namgun told him that he should have borrowed the sword. Meanwhile, Chung Hun informed them that he was securing the rope. Heron also came out of the water, kicked the stake, and said that it would be secure. The enemies shouted that he only had 3 dates left. Let the guys keep their eyes open and they will be able to easily avoid them. And it was time to destroy him before the Ice Phoenix arrived. And they only had to dodge 3 blows. Ji understood that they could dodge if they kept their eyes open, but he thought the guys were fools. Everyone else had already fallen. Heron asked his friend if there were any more dates left. He was sorry because until now they had been very useful. But Ryun replied that he shouldn't worry and that 3 would be enough. But suddenly Ji saw that Ryun was just a monster, and he had to finish him off. And judging by his nightmare today, he would finish him off. He opened his mouth and threw the pill in. And in front of this monster, he had no time to think about the consequences. The guy shouted to his people to attack immediately, but Ryan was also ready, and he released the dates from his hands, directing them at his enemies. The 3 dates did their job, but Ji waited for his moment and went to attack. But then Rin came out and shouted that it was dangerous. She somersaulted right in front of the guy to repel the attack. But when she opened her eyes, she saw someone's sword begin to crack, and everything was covered in blood. Rin gave her all to this attack to save the guys. But she saw how Rin flicked his finger and broke the enemy's sword. The pieces of the sword flew back at the guy with tremendous force, wounding him on all sides. Meanwhile, Rin lost her balance and fell to the ground, but Ryan didn't let that happen and caught her. After that, Chung Hun tried to bring the guy to his senses, but he didn't understand why he was in such a state. Looking at his hands, he realized something. But Ryun said that he thought he had eaten something strange and was suffering from indigestion. But Rin denied it and told the guy to let her go, that she was fine. Suddenly, Heron also told Ryan that, surprisingly, he didn't feel any physical weight gain. But psychologically, he felt the pressure of 2 people, so he wanted to receive the appropriate reward. Chung Hun still asked what the whirlwind sword had eaten. He gave him first aid, but strangely, the flow of energy in his body was not gathering, but dissipating. Tang also said that it was his own fault for eating it. She suggested just leaving him. It was obvious that he had eaten something right before the attack. It seemed to be some kind of fake medicine to temporarily increase his strength, and now the side effects were showing up. Rin also said she agreed. He made that choice himself. If he ends up crippled as a result, he has to deal with the consequences. Dio saw that the son of the deputy head of the alliance had suffered severe injuries, and he didn't know why it was so terrible. After all, this time he saw it clearly, just now for sure, and it looked like terrible witchcraft. Dios asked the director if they should stop everything right now, especially after this guy Ruin used dark arts. The director replied that he didn't understand what dark arts Daos was talking about. But the elder laughed and said that martial arts are called dark if they have strong dark energy or are used by followers of the dark path. But when he looked at the boy, he didn't sense any dark energy. So maybe the noble sword knows the evil demon who uses such martial arts? Dios understood in his mind that he knew everything. And how could he forget that devil? But if he revealed that incident, there would be trouble. But he stood up and said that was not the case. But wasn't that too cruel? Besides, Cheon was the son of the deputy head of the alliance. The director also agreed and replied that if he had not been stopped, Ji's sword would not only have killed Ryuan's disciple, but also wounded the precious daughter of the alliance leader Ri. And let him see that even the usually reserved captain of the guard squad jumped up. So surprised was he by what had just happened. The warrior confirmed everything and replied that the Ice Phoenix was unharmed. But in fact, he was more surprised by the actions of the Ice Phoenix than by the seriousness of the situation as a whole. She threw herself in to save that guy. And on top of that, she fell right into his arms. If the head of the alliance finds out about this, it will be bad. The director suddenly said that he was glad that student Chung-hoon had provided emergency assistance to student Ji, so that he would recover in time. The warrior thought, why didn't the captain of the shadowless squad warn about this? Chung-hoon thought that the scoundrel would be taken away immediately, and probably they would cure him somehow. Even the captain of the guard squad saw the scene. Now he had a headache. But how could he have known that the Ice Phoenix would rush to save their fool? Mrs. Tang doesn't think she understands either. But she rushed forward at such a dangerous moment because Miss Na has feelings for him. And a bunch of guys are trying to win the favor of the girl they like by rushing to her defense. And he doesn't care about anything except his appearance. And now she wonders if everything will be all right. Heron told Ryan that he admired him. And so he decided to run on his shoulders instead of next to Miss Na. And for her safety. He realized this when he saw everyone rushing to attack them. Ruin asked in surprise, "Is that how it looks?" He thought he was just proving his genius once again today. But Chung-hoon told them to stop talking nonsense. It was time to prepare for the next step. And there, Moon-hee would take care of them. Moon told them to stay close to her, and the poisonous snakes and insects would not touch them. But everyone would have to deal with the poisonous smoke on their own. Moon went ahead, and the others saw that they really weren't getting any closer. And what else could be expected from her sister? She is simply amazing. Moon replied that what was even more surprising was that he, born into the Tang clan, was unfamiliar with the art of avoiding poisons. And from now on, he should not say that he was from the Tang clan. Suddenly, Moon asked if that was why she had been taken into the team. Chung-hoon replied that she was also chosen for that reason. He needed a girl with principles, but at the same time morally flexible and with a strong survival instinct. But then Moon said that she wasn't like that. But Rin replied that she also agreed with Chung-hoon's student. Thanks to her, they passed this section safely, and now he would overtake them and join the two of them. Moon was surprised that Miss Na was such a kind person. Yun, in turn, said that she expected this from the direct descendants of the Tang clan from Sichuan, who are famous for their poison control techniques. She had heard about it, but seeing it with her own eyes was truly amazing. Although not as surprising as the fact that Miss Go had decided not to help Miss Na. But Go asked her why she thought she should interfere with her sister's path. It would be rude and disrespectful to her. Moreover, she stands out even more against the rest who cling to Miss Tan. People like her are rare. She is not from the Tan clan, but snakes and insects still do not bite her. Yun replied that Mr. Heron had mentioned it. It has to do with immunity, right? It turns out she has been exposed to many different poisons. And dear Ren also endured that hell for a very long time. Heron easily coped with it and defended his honor. Vol immediately said that he did not know who the young man in front of him was, but someone so handsome and stately would clearly become a great person in the future. Heron thanked him for the praise, but Rin said she would join too, and let Mentor Cho take care of them. Heron replied to Miss Na that there was nothing to fear here, and Moon said she would cover them from behind. Vol was ready and told them to attack together. But why were they so strange? And why did they tolerate a shaggy fly sucking honey while everyone else worked hard? Rune decided that if it sucks honey, then it must be a bee or a butterfly. But if it is a fly, then heron is manure, which is made from animal excrement, and how cruel wool is to him. But Heron told his friend that he was being too cruel. Vol attacked, shouting that Ruin was a dung fly. And he had already noticed that with his strange manners and sophistry, he was simply attracting attention. 4 in front and 3 behind, only 7 in total. Did they really think they could take him by surprise if they hid one behind their backs? but they could still try. Ruin raised his hand and said that since Vol had figured out the secret, there was nothing to be done. And he ordered everyone to attack. After their attack, the guys made their way through and shouted that they had gotten all 5, and the flags needed to be distributed quickly. Chung-hoon approached him and said he would take 2 flags. Heron struck the first blow and apologized for it, but Wool didn't understand why he apologized. He thought he was stately and polite. However, he had to catch the fly on his shoulders. After striking, Ryun dodged immediately and said that the mentor was overdoing it, and again treated Heron like manure. But Heron said again that he was the only one who was overdoing it. And Ryun asked Miss Na and the guys to avenge the unjustly offended Heron. Vol immediately realized that this monster-eyed creature was no fly, but a squid. No, even a squid would have had a hard time dodging his last attack. Rin suddenly apologized before attacking and used a unique sword technique from the sword pavilion, the small sword of the White Union. Vol was surprised to hear about the sword pavilion technique, and judging by her bright appearance, she seemed to be Mr. Na's only daughter. Namgun, meanwhile, approached from behind and apologized, but Vol managed to dodge the attack. He thought that such a clumsy pervert would attack from behind and apologize. The elder began to laugh and said that there were many free spirits in the 4th team, and that was impressive. But Wool reacted with ease and struck Namgun with his knee. And he saw that now the Tan clan was closing in on him, and their hidden aura and attacks were still very bland. And he proudly said that they couldn't defeat him that way. They just needed to attack all at once. But Ryun suddenly asked him if he could handle them all. But they were already done with their business here, and before they could meet again, they had somewhere to go. Vol was shocked and asked when this gray fly had stolen everything. He was delighted because he considered himself the destroyer of the club of young girls' lovers. He got all 5 flags, but there weren't enough for everyone. Apparently, it was his turn to become a dazzling victim, offered up to the mentor of the fiery blade. He was terrifyingly hot, but he had nothing left to lose. Moon asked him why he was acting so cool when he was still sticking to her like glue. She didn't know about the rest, but he was indeed a dazzling victim. It hurt her eyes. Chung-hoon came over and said that no one needed to be sacrificed. Everyone on their team had passed. The senior classmate had succeeded, and they had obtained all the necessary flags. Moon was shocked and asked him if he was serious. He also asked him what he was talking about. Who was he, and how long had he been with them? Hadn't he been on their side from the beginning? Chung-hoon praised the guy for doing a great job, and he did try hard. The guy replied that they had simply given them to him, so he took them. But for some reason, he felt like he had deceived them, which made him feel ashamed. What should he do if the guys from the 7th team got angry and came after him? Chang-hoon told him not to worry and to put on this bag. That would definitely solve the problem. The other participants thanked the mentor for letting them pass. Han replied that they had succeeded thanks to their abilities, and good luck to them in the next stage. Hin told the guys that it was time to head to the last gate, but suddenly the girl asked them to give them some flags too. The guy immediately replied that he had sent them 2 flags. Didn't they receive them? Come to think of it, why did he only take 2? He needed a 3rd one for himself, and the numbers didn't add up. The guy started looking around and asking where he had gone. The participant asked him who he was talking about. All 8 of them were here now. The guy started saying that the other guy had definitely been on their team from the beginning, but he had also helped them in the trap zone. The participants realized that the guy had indeed helped them a couple of times. He didn't have a number, so he thought he was from the young girls' club. Hin said they had been caught. A spy from the 4th team had clearly infiltrated them. The participant got angry and said that according to his calculations, 2 of the team would not pass. Hyun replied that no, it wasn't over yet. Until they reached the tree, it wasn't over. They had to knock down the flags. Meanwhile, the snowman was resting and said that children are not stupid, so they go where it is easier. That is why it is completely empty here. But he became curious about what was happening with that dog. Ruin reached the mentor of the flaming blade and greeted him. He was so excited that he would be able to finish his mentor's training. He thought he was crazy, and he realized that he was going to end his life in front of a whole crowd of people, including the snowman. But he couldn't bear it. He told the guy to let him go today. Right now, he couldn't take a step, guarding the tree, so he wouldn't be able to complete his training. Besides, if he behaved like that in front of everyone, what would happen to his salary? Why not pretend that he was stopping him? Ruin replied that it made sense, but still they all had to pass, and he wanted to do everything in his power to stop them. He said no, he would just pretend, and they would just pass behind him. Ruin immediately thought about it. Meanwhile, Moon asked what the unpleasant atmosphere was about. What was going on between the Red Rooster and the Gold Digger? Chung-hoon also thought that these two were communicating through voice transmission. And could it be that a fool obsessed with money was trying to bribe the mentor? Rin suddenly saw and said that the seventh team was coming, and immediately there were voices saying that the fourth team were thieves, and that they should return the flags immediately. And which of them is the criminal? They really do have 7 of them. A participant immediately asked, "What about the bald guy and the pervert in red?" He himself shouted that they were too cruel. Namgung also didn't understand what he meant by pervert. The participants replied that absolutely not. The criminal wasn't such a villain. He looked like an ordinary, unremarkable guy. He didn't even have a number. Now only those 2 remained. But judging by their age, they didn't look so ordinary. The guy realized that the bastard wasn't old. Maybe he wasn't from the 4th team. Hin said that even if the culprit wasn't here, the 4th team still had 2 more flags. The participants suggested that they just grab the 2 simpletons and take their flags. If they retreat, he and Mak Yan will be left without flags. And everyone decided at once that they would focus their attack on the bald guy and the old men. Chung-hoon immediately told Ruon that they were after them. He would delay them, and they should hurry and run to the tree. Ruon agreed and decided that's what they would do. Chung-hoon stood up to Team 7 and told the elders not to worry about him. The participants all pounced on him at once, but Chung-hoon began to defend himself and was ready to stand his ground to the end. But suddenly Chung-hoon felt the flames behind him, and he shouted at him to get out of the way. The participant from Team 7 shouted for Sam to give them the flag, and they saw that the bald man and the mustachioed man had disappeared. Sam suddenly didn't understand why he had flown up, and Heron congratulated him on passing. The boy saw this and said that Chung-hoon's student was holding back the 7th team all by himself, and that it was time to rescue him. But Heron replied that this was not the problem right now, and he thought that Chung-hoon's brother would soon be in big trouble. Seeing such fire, the snowman wondered what he was doing there. Meanwhile, the Taoist asked if the results should be canceled. If he was not mistaken, the fiery blade mentor had only attacked the children of their white sword group. The director laughed and replied that he had only viciously attacked the children from the 7th team. The warrior also said that there was a clear problem with fairness. What would they do with this round? The director replied that they would simply continue. Afterwards, they would need to talk to the flame blade instructor, but it did not violate the rules. The Taoists believed that even if it was a children's competition, ignoring unfair actions and covering for the mentor who was in charge of it was wrong. But the elder laughed and asked if this wasn't part of the test. All this mess wasn't as bad as the world of martial arts anyway. Guys, if you can't pass now, it will be difficult to survive at the Huashan Agreement meeting. And even when hellish flames rage around them, those who can dodge, those who can find a way out, those who survive will prove their mastery. In the end, everyone from the 4th team passed. Ying was delighted because she thought so too. Ryuan's student's abilities were admirable, and Chang Hong's student was also quite good. Go now understood what impressed the Heavenly Demon Pavilion. But Han suddenly thought that he was actually more impressed by the 7th team. They managed to minimize the damage in such a situation. The guy replied that this was certainly true, but in his opinion, the real monster here was the 3rd shining sword. It was he who saved all his teammates, except for the 2 who were wounded by the mentor's flaming blade. In the end, there weren't enough flags for them. Yoon agreed, and that's why she admires the 4th team even more. After all, Ryuan's student didn't let any of his teammates fail. She asked Mr. Moen the same thing, what he thought. I wonder who he admires the most. Hui thought that the 3rd shining sword was usually very conscientious, but this time he did not notice the spy who had infiltrated his group. And this Huang, who deceived the eyes of the 3rd shining sword, what abilities is he known for? But he simply does not show any signs of existence by nature. Brother Chan, who used his seniority and withstood the attacks of the fiery blade mentor, turned out to be very strong. Or Ryuan, who usually steals snacks from Brother Chan. So ultimately, the 4th team has someone whose skills cannot be denied. But then he changed his mind and said that there was no such thing, and he said he denied it. Yun was surprised and asked what wasn't true. The participant understands Hui to some extent. After all, he himself admires him even more. Ruin returned and said that he had come for an important client. Chang-hun immediately said that the four seniors would take care of themselves. Ryu-un would accompany Miss Yun, and he would take care of the rest. Ruin asked if this would affect his salary. Well, the fact that this neat freak would be on his own. Hui replied that he also refused such useless help. The participant, moving on the water, said that it was quite convenient to climb this way. And of course, there was no arguing with that. But Go believed that this was only convenient for those who had the ability. Surely they teach this in the pavilion of the heavenly demon? Chung-hoon said that they had installed ropes for the sake of a valuable customer, but water could splash on her. Yun was surprised and realized that these ropes were for her. She was so pleased that she felt a little embarrassed. Moon was dissatisfied and said that it was as if they were carrying her in a carriage. They didn't do it for them, and they didn't even think about Miss Na. Heron replied that it was because they hadn't paid. Although people like Miss Na always get privileges anyway. Moon asked Miss Na if she wasn't upset. Rin replied that she had no reason to be dissatisfied. Saul also agreed and said that it would be much worse if they treated Miss Na like a princess who didn't know martial arts. And why such protection? Miss Yoon is from the Heavenly Demon Pavilion, so she must have excellent fighting skills. Moon thought about it and said that, come to think of it, she doesn't even have a sword. Could she be using a secret weapon? Heron also replied that he was not sure what kind of person she was. Rin suddenly said that she was one of the four women of the Dark Path, known as the Four Flowers. On the Dark Path, such a nickname cannot be earned by appearance and status alone. And she thinks that Yin just doesn't want to show off her skills here. Yin shouted that it was amazing how Ruin walked where there were no traps. How did he detect them? Ruin replied that he was a genius. Plus, he didn't have any exhausting hobbies like some people. And the traps here were easy to avoid if you got into the rhythm. Yun was surprised and asked what rhythm. Ruin replied that the traps here have a rhythm. If you step on them at the right time, they won't work anyway and you can pass safely. It's like a game. Ruin demonstrated his ability to navigate the traps and showed it as if he were completing a level in a game. Yun said she didn't understand anything, but it was very interesting. Thanks to this, they managed to get through quickly. The others asked why she was so comfortable. They were jealous. Chung-hoon told them not to be so greedy. They should be happy with what they get for free. After passing the test, Chung-hoon asked the guys how they felt. Didn't it seem like they had a smooth ride? And they were lucky to have Chul Yeon on the team, who could use the art of avoiding poison. Young was surprised and asked if that meant he was their horse. The guy also said that Doc Go and her companions had broken through here with a light step. But they couldn't even use the art of avoiding poisons, so why weren't they in a hurry? Yun was shocked and said that snakes and poisonous insects avoid Mr. Ryun. Ryung replied that this was not the case. It was just that his younger brothers could recognize pure souls, and unfortunately, pure clothes alone were not enough here. After passing the test, Ryun said that now he needed to leave, and Chang said that from now on, he would take care of them. The boys asked where he was going. Changong replied that Ryun would act as a robber from the 72 villages of the Green Forest and return with passes. The 7th divine sword, if he doesn't have a flag yet, better hurry up. Hui replied that he was not going to ask anyone for a favor. Upon arriving at the location, Chang-hoon stated that Master Wool had become quite agitated. It seemed that obtaining the flags would be challenging. Yun suddenly replied that if it was a problem, maybe she could help. Yun approached Uncle Cho and said that he was kind. But what made him so angry, she asked. Was it because he ran away with a whole bunch of flags? Meanwhile, Ryun was already holding the flags in his hands and looking to see where the others were.